Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of What If Naruto Was Orochimaru with a gender-interchanging ability. It's a unique twist on the Naruto universe, packed with surprises and a dash of chaos. Before we jump into the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to help more fans discover this amazing tale. A quick heads up, this fanfic contains strong lemon scenes, so make sure to grab your headphones and settle in without interruptions. And here's the deal. The next part will be uploaded as soon as we hit 200 likes. Now let's get into it. By a twist of fate, or the cruel intervention of gods, I've woken up as Orochimaru, right after he possessed a woman for his new host. Stuck in this body, I must navigate a world of sycophants and psychos, all while reshaping Orochimaru's plans into something that keeps me alive and turns this chaos into a force of true change in this broken world. Chapter 1. Orochimaru-sama. The process is complete. Those were the first words I heard coming to this world. Moments before that I was having an experience I would liken to an acid trip through a haunted mansion decorated by H.R. Geiger, which culminated in me eating a snake that was in the middle of eating a woman. In the process I somehow ate the woman as well. Really messed up nightmare fuel stuff. Now I made the assumption I was not insane, which any insane person will tell you is always a good idea, so I came to the very reasonable conclusion that I am somehow now Orochimaru. Not just that, I was him right, as he had just completed his first time taking over a body after an unsuccessful attempt at possessing Itachi. I know this only because I have memory of doing these things myself, as if I was Orochimaru. Was I making sense? Probably not. Either way, I had an entire life's worth of memories of study, training, practice, and interactions with people I have never known. Plus a whole lot of killing, bloodshed, and torture. Lovely. Though it was all that training as a magic soldier wizard that was also a scientist spy that allowed me to keep my face carefully blank as I replied to the minion that was in the room with me. "Thank you, Hibiki-kun, you are excused," I said, glancing at the man groveling before me before he finally left the room. "Orochimaru-sama, before I go, as I'm sure you've noticed, your body is a bit different now than it was before you went to seize the subject. Would you like for me get dash? That is not necessary. I will do my own examination," I responded. "By your leave then," he said before backing out the door, head still bowed. The man was clearly terrified of Orochimaru. Of me. As the door clicked shut and I sensed the man walking away, and wasn't that wild? I could sense people now. I ran a hand down my face and let out a groan. Of all worlds to possibly go to, this was very low on my list. The fact that the fates, the gods, or whatever the hell got me here decided that I should be shoved into the second biggest asshole in the setting wasn't great. At least it wasn't the biggest asshole in the setting. Guess Danzo is good for something, I mutter under my breath. I turned to take stock of my new body. There was already a mirror set up in the room because, no joke, Orochimaru wanted to check his hair after the possession. Which made sense. No one had such long straight hair without it being something of a priority in their life. The same hair I had now, which was a bit different for me. My hair had always been wavy and would take hours with a flat iron to get anything like what my reflection showed. My skin was pale white, like albino white, and was decorated with purple lines just under my eyes. But many other things were still familiar to the old me. Same nose. Same ears. Same mole on the back of my neck even. But there were many things different. My cheekbones weren't the same. The shape of my eyes were wrong too. The list went on with most of my body features. Some the same. Some different. As I went to wonder why, the answer came to me almost immediately. Whenever you place a soul into something, it tries to take the shape that its soul recognizes as its own. It was a major principle on the Edo Tensei, and also why a Jinchuriki often released their Biju's chakra in a shape similar to the Biju itself. But in living flesh there was a certain limit to it. Orochimaru was already well on his way to taking over this body when I, somehow, ate his soul and took over it myself. Still giving me all of the man's knowledge and ability. His summoning tattoo was also still present, and my chakra could feel the contract was still active, and would respond to my call. Then there was the position. If I left the room, I also knew that I would find over 100 men and women who would kill and die at my word now. Well, at least I was still a woman? Since the man had already been in the process of taking over a woman. The same one that he had when he fought Sarutobi, if I could guess right. Small comforts and all that. A knock came at the door. "Orochimaru-sama, I know you might still be recovering, but you asked me to immediately bring you the report when it arrived. All the test subjects have passed away and none exhibited the desired results before they passed. Should I start on the next batch of subjects?" A voice called through the door. What was he? Orochimaru was trying to forcibly give people super healing effects and failed at it. The next batch was supposed to be all children under the age of 5. Well, that shit was stopping right now. No. For that matter, please call for a meeting among my lieutenants. We will be making some changes in light of new information. I felt exhausted. The back of my mind noting it was due to a large amount of chakra depletion. But due to how Orochimaru was running this show like this was the island of Dr. Moro, the longer I waited to make changes the more people would die. I'll have more than enough guilt and nightmares about the shit Orochimaru has already done. I didn't need the death of innocents added on to that. I stood up and stretched before putting on Orochimaru's old clothes. They were hideous, by the way, but they would do for now. Walking out of the room, there was only one thing on my mind: time to make some changes. Besides, I was flipping Orochimaru. Pretty sure it wouldn't be hard to get them to go with what I decide. So, to recap, one of my minions said, disbelief clear on his face. You want us to stop all research that has a risk of the subject dying. You want us to stop all current missions that involve gathering more research subjects. And you also want all of our spies to take lower risk missions? One of my head researchers asked. Yes. That is correct, I responded. There wasn't a murmur in the room, all of the people in the room either too well trained or too afraid of me to vocalize anything resembling disagreement. But looks were shared and a tense, nervous atmosphere settled into the room. Can I ask why? My research is close to getting results. I have plans now. Plans that will require me to have as many people to command as possible. I need lives not to be spent on other things currently. Plus, I have now had a recent disagreement with a group of very powerful people. We need to keep a lower profile for a while. My own powers of bullshittery were already pretty strong, but Orochimaru's training added in. They were pretty powerful, but I was trying to sell nonviolence to what was basically the people running Auschwitz. I certainly couldn't get them to do it on a basis of morality, and I did want a structure here. A base of power. This world sucked, and I would be a force to help change it. Plus, pretty much everyone with power wants me dead. So, I had preserved what I had, and these guys didn't seem to be very happy with this idea. Orochimaru-sama, I can't accept this. When I joined up with you, it was because you said I could complete my studies without any constraints. And you want to take that away when I'm so close to a breakthrough? The man didn't yell, but the veins on his neck and face bulged with anger. Many faces around the table looked to be the same, minus a few that seemed too affronted that he would ever question me. I would probably have to make an example, and this guy was making himself a target. But I didn't want to kill anyone. Orochimaru may have killed thousands, but I had not. Besides, this man could have his own children and family. Memories filtered through on how Orochimaru had found this man. His experiments had killed scores of people. The hidden waterfall village was growing tired of failures and were reluctant to provide any more test subjects. So the man used his wife and son. His notes had been meticulously detailed about their deaths. Now, Tsukino-kun, I don't appreciate you making such a mess in my meeting room. Confusion crossed the man's face. Mess? I don't dash. I opened my mouth and Kusunagi's blade shot out and impaled the man in the throat before he could say anything else. He fell to the floor with a wheeze. The blade of the Kusunagi had done its job so quickly no blood had even managed to splash onto the tool of death. Era, causing such a mess, I said with a shrug, as if I was mother saying, boys will be boys. Everyone else in the room had gotten deathly still. Now then! I lost track of what we were talking about. Were any of you stating that you were going against my order too? I'm a bit tired and forgot who were on which side. Shockingly, everyone seemed in full support of my plan now. Meeting dismissed then, I ordered as everyone quickly filed out of the room. Once everyone was gone, I sat there and waited. I surprised myself and didn't cry. I had thought I would cry after that. Instead, I stood, walked over to Tsukino's body and carefully closed the man's wide, terrified eyes. I didn't like killing. Even if I wouldn't cry over it, it was still distressful to me. Still felt like such a waste. But the threat of death is how Orochimaru kept these people in line. And until I could fill the ranks with people that I trusted, the continued threat of death is likely the only thing that would keep them in line. Damn you, monster! I muttered under my breath. Still, I dragged this village into being more than a den of depraved monsters and kneeling sycophants yet. Right after I figured how the hell to actually do that now. It started with paint. I'd initially informed everyone that, since we were sending less personnel out, I had some busy work for them. Idle hands and all that. So I had gotten some white paint and had them put a fresh coat of paint on the walls. It's amazing how much a coat of paint can change the feel of a place. It transformed the little hideout from being a gaping maw of darkness to giving off the feel of a government building. So basically only slightly better. However, I then put in for the ceiling to be painted blue. I stated that it helps to keep people awake if the ceiling is the same shade as an open blue sky. It all seemed as a logical way to make them better at paying attention to their jobs. I'll eventually find some nice paintings and stuff to hang up. As soon as I'm able to actually leave this pit, and be confident none of my minions will start offing people. I swear these people were like 2 steps away from Lord of the Flies. Ishida-kun. I have tasked you to research avenues of curing heart disease, did I not? Yes, Orochimaru-sama, he said, eyes low. And why exactly are you presenting me with a plan to cure heart disease that will also destroy their liver and damage brain cells? I know it is incomplete, but I felt we were at the stage for human testing. You aren't. Continue to use the pigs that I provided. About that. I am out of pigs. I blinked and slowly looked up from what I had been writing on my desk. I gave you 100 pigs. Last week. Yes, Orochimaru-sama, for fuck's sake. These people didn't know how to research anything without killing something. 2 weeks ago I barely stopped a group I had tasked with studying new implementations of fire techniques on a living subject. The technique didn't even require anything beyond a wooden target. Get out. I ordered. Yes, Orochimaru-sama, he said before bowing out of the room. A few seconds later a piece of paper was pushed under the door asking if he would be getting more pigs soon. The fact that I don't bang my head against a wall is really a compliment to my sanity. Finding things for these people to do that didn't violate international ethical laws on even this world was proving to be very difficult. Most of the minions' research and desires were not the stuff of an ordered and peaceful society. Hell, Orochimaru wasn't even paying these people. They were here because they were messed up enough in the head to stay or because they were too afraid to leave. That's not even counting the various people here to fight and kill. The regular people intended to be soldiers and guinea pigs, though those were proving easier to please. I sent them out to hunt for food and tasked their commander to treat it as an exercise in stealth. To not let anyone see them and leave no traces. Even a town person mysteriously disappearing would be considered a failure. I also started up other attempts at actual training, which is apparently something that we weren't doing before. We were apparently just getting certain subject to find to whatever thing on them we were researching, and that's about it. Which Orochimaru knew made them weaker and more liable to die. He just didn't care, so I was doing the equivalent of assigning people D-rank missions. Establishing working as a team being a thing that was actually important. And pretty much all of the rank and file soldiers, after the first 2 weeks of grumbling, seemed to be enjoying the new structured pace and feeling as if they were completing tasks. After all, most humans want to work and not just stand around doing nothing. Even an NET wanted to read and play games, which is a byproduct of wanting to feel like you were accomplishing something. But I had also come to realize what it was I needed to do. I needed to make my own hidden village. I sort of had that, but I needed the village to have more strength. I needed something that could challenge one of the big villages. I needed something that strength was acknowledged enough that I would able to call myself a Kage, a title reserved for only the 5 major ninja villages. I would need to go recruiting. Hidden villages are very competitive, and if I wanted to become a threat it would need to be rapidly enough that not everyone realized I was so much of a threat until I was more of a pain to take out that I was worth. More of these brainwashed edgelords here were going to help with that. I needed to take a page out of Akatsuki's playbook and recruit Missing Nin, which would, in turn, help me with raising the strength of the rest of my people as they start to train other people. Orochimaru was grabbing up any random person with a blood limit he could find before all of this anyways. So if a little work got put into them there would be a good base of power here. I just needed Jonin first. Orochimaru-sama. A voice came from my door. I was so tired of hearing that. I have come to submit for human testing. I was tired of hearing that too. I ripped the door open and took stock of the now very nervous woman at my door. Kuchiki-san. I would like to clarify something. Your research is towards making plants grow faster, correct? Yes, Orochimaru-sama, through applications of chemical and chakra-treated dirt. I added on. Yes, Orochimaru-sama. The only thing I had demanded be approved through me for human trials was for things that had a high probability of harming someone. So rather than asking how the fuck her research would ever need human trial approval, I just strode past her in a way and said, "Do not follow me." I still had many things I wanted to check up on. Many subjects I want to help and try to actually cure instead of just study. But I was too busy stopping people from sticking a knife in a metaphorical light socket to do that. So, for the first time I decided to do something else. I navigated the purposely confusing corridors and entered a lab with a subject that could help me on my next project. The room was full of only a giant chamber of water and various testing equipment ranging from computers, somehow, to seal arrays. A face suddenly appeared in the water, looking at me with a confused expression. I ignored him for a few moments to interact with the sealing array. In moments the chamber drained of most of its water until only the water in the shape of a young teenager remained. "Who are you?" he asked as he took on the colors of a normal human being. Era. You don't recognize the one that you begged to take you in, Suigetsu-kun?" He raised an eyebrow. "You don't look like Orochimaru," he said with eyes locked onto my chest. "Yes, well some things have changed." I ignore his muttering of "big change. I need your help, Suigetsu-kun." I leaned forward and lowered my voice, as if I were whispering a secret. "What can you tell me about the personality of Momochi Zabuza?" Hibiki Nagisa had been the right-hand man of Orochimaru for more than 5 years. It was he that had assisted his master for years in his research of immortality, defied death by changing bodies. The technique was perfect, at least it was supposed to be. His master had come back from his attempt on Uchiha Itachi beaten and bloody, the Sharingan somehow blocking the attempt to take over the young prodigy. They rushed to find a replacement for his master's failing body. They had decided to use the Setsushi girl as a host. Her bloodline might help in the research of Edo Tensei. It was a good plan. Orochimaru-sama had agreed it was a good plan. But now, Era. It's good for you to make friends, Sujitsu-kun. We'll still help you get stronger, of course, but it's no good for your growth to stay locked up in a tube all day. Orochimaru-sama walked down the hall with test subject 1701. The boy was alternating between staring baffled at the snake standing leading him and the staring at the well-lit and painted walls. Orochimaru-sama had changed. He had no idea how or why. The girl that was sacrificed was a broken shell with hardly a will of her own. There was no way she could fight against his master's attempt to possess her. But something was wrong. The body changing after being possessed was normal. It was supposed to happen. It was meant to change to an appearance closer to Orochimaru-sama, not change to look even more feminine. Then there were the personality changes, which wasn't meant to happen at all. Couldn't happen, in fact. So the sudden change in priorities and personality must be because of a change in plans. His master must be doing all of this for a reason. This must be some plan to secure true immortality. Nagisa just had to be patient and see how this plan would unfold. It would undoubtedly lead to scientific breakthroughs and greater amounts of power in the hands of him and his master. He just needed to figure out how posters of felines and the words "hang in there" factored into things. So where are you taking me? Suigetsu asked in suspicion. This was probably really confusing for the boy. Besides the fact that I looked like, well, me, which really would throw anyone for a loop when they were expecting Snake Pedo. Suigetsu had gone into that chamber months ago, when everything out here looked very Resident Evil. Now the halls looked clean, there were splashes of vibrant colors here and there, and I got better light sources. It was still torches though, since I couldn't afford to run that kind of electricity yet. Orochimaru apparently didn't have time for things like establishing an economy. I told you, Suigetsu-kun, to make a friend. The boy made retching sound in the back of his throat and began to pout as he walked beside me. Era. You stick that lip out much farther, you'll trip on it. The embodiment of water looked like he had no idea how to respond to that. Besides, we've arrived. The door before us was made of iron. It also had metal gate with its own lock. The gate was open. It seemed Kimimaro was already visiting. Suigetsu stared in apprehension as I opened a door capable of stopping a rhino in full charge. Orochimaru-sama. Kimimaro was on one knee bowing to me in seconds. I stopped myself from sighing in frustration. The leader of my bodyguards would only take it as a sign he should supplicate even more. The other occupant of the room, a copper-haired teenager that had clearly been eating his Wheaties, stood looking between Kimimaro and myself before slowly starting to lower himself into a bow as well. I quickly interrupted his attempt. Yugo-kun. This is Suigetsu. The name Yugo is familiar to Suigetsu apparently, as the boy began to sweat marble-sized water droplets. I put a comforting hand on Suigetsu's shoulder. It does not seem to help. Kimimaro. Would you please be present for this? I want the two of them to get to know each other. Too few of our shinobi share in the bond of friendship. So I want to help our younger members bond. Yes, Orochimaru-sama. Kimimaro said without hesitation, then seemed to pause as he processed what it was I had just said. I gently guided Suigetsu into the room with the hand that still rested on his shoulder, and he only fought against the push a little. And to help you the bonding, I brought a little something to help you. All eyes in the room locked onto me and all of their stances tensed. Even Kimimaro. Orochimaru, you absolute fucking psychopath. I withdrew a simple rubber ball that fit easily in the palm of hand. I had gotten them to be used for reflex exercise in replacement of the very sharp kunai that we had been using. And if there was one thing I didn't know, if you leave boys alone with a ball they will play with it. It's just what people do. I threw the ball to Suigetsu and gave my best charming smile. I'll come back later to pick you back up and to take Kimikun for some tests. Play nice, boys. I shut the door before any of them could respond. The rubber balls were a good idea. I was glad that I had put them in the supply requests. That line of thinking then had me wonder how much the rubber balls had cost. Which in turn had me realize that Oto had next to no income. Which then had me come to the realization that I had probably caused my ninja to go rob a toy store. I took a moment to run a hand down my face. Oto was not meant to run in a long term and was meant to completely collapse if Orochimaru had left for a significant period of time. It was a tool meant to be used and discarded. And I had decided to turn the mess into an actual functioning hidden village. I needed more soldiers, administrators, and connections to do that, but I couldn't because all the dumbasses and psychopaths would start killing each other and random bystanders the moment I turned my back. I then resolved to do something I hadn't wanted to do. It's usually not a great idea to invite a spy into handling the logistics of running your empire, but I was running out of options. I headed to my office and promptly sent off a recall order for Kabuto. The medic had not yet become fully loyal to me yet, but I didn't feel like turning him away from Danzo would be a particularly hard sell. Danzo was far more stick than carrot after all. In the meantime, I had decided that I had dealt with enough stupid for the day and resolved to go to a nearby town for shopping. The purple bow looked decent on me, but everyone else I'd seen wearing it had it looked just awful. The very fact Orochimaru approved the Sound 4's uniform really says a lot about him. Suigetsu held the ball at arm's length, slowly turning it to see if it had some sort of seal, poison, or something on it. The thing had to be booby-trapped somehow. There is no way Orochimaru gave them a rubber ball just to play. That was Orochimaru? Yugo asked. Yes. That was Orochimaru-sama, Kimimaro intoned. Ain't so sure the Maru part of that fits anymore, Suigetsu said as he tested the ball with a squeeze to see if it released some noxious gas or exploded. Nothing happened with the ball, but he did get a good dose of killing intent from Kimimaro. You will show respect, Kimimaro stated. Suigetsu wondered how someone could have so little emotion in their voice, and yet sound so threatening. I just meant Maru is the ending to a guy's name. And Orochimaru is clearly not trying to sound like a guy right now. She's going era, Suigetsu defended. The stupid dots on Kimimaro's forehead drew closer together, as he seemed to struggle with Suigetsu's words. The white-haired prick was apparently troubled by Orochi whatever's sudden midlife crisis. That was a guy. He was so pretty though, Yugo asked. Of sorts, Kimimaro said. Orochimaru-sama is able to move from one person's body to the next. His most recent host is a woman. Suigetsu highly doubted that was it. That wouldn't explain the sudden use of era, which was something only middle-aged women say. Plus he figured the snake Sannin knew at least 5 different ways to still look and sound like a guy. This was clearly a choice. Then isn't Orochimaru just getting used to her body and is coming to accept herself? I don't think there's anything wrong with that, Yugo said while looking at the rubber ball and longing. Kimimaro put one hand to his chin and muttered. That could be it. After a few more moments of Yugo staring at the rubber ball, Suigetsu finally bounced it over towards the room's normal resident. He bounced the ball off the ground a few times, marveling at the simple act. That sounds like a decent explanation to me. From now on I'll just call her boss lady, and if she doesn't like it she can kill me herself. Kimimaro nodded his head. Yes, that way you will be useful to me at least in death. Very well. Suigetsu felt his eye twitch at the casual talk of his death serving a purpose. Hey, Yugo. Can I see that again real fast? Suigetsu asked. Sure. Yugo took way too much joy having the ball bounce back to Suigetsu. The former Miss Nin then took the ball, wound up, and threw it as hard as he could at Kimimaro's head. The head of Orochimaru's personal guard plucked the ball out of the air before it could connect with anything. He stared at the ball in contemplation for a moment, before glancing at Yugo. Orochimaru-sama did tell us to play dot, he muttered before the rubber ball made Suigetsu's left shoulder explode in a spray of water. Suigetsu glanced down at his shoulder in surprise. He hadn't expected a rubber ball to do that much damage to him. So that's why she wanted to make us be friends, Yugo exclaimed. Suigetsu ignored him to take the opportunity to snatch the ball from his shoulder, and tried to get it to ricochet off the wall behind Kimimaro to peg the smug bastard in the ass. Kimimaro simply did a half-turn and let the ball bounce past him and towards Yugo. The giant oaf just happily grabbed it, and threw it towards Suigetsu, who had his pinky finger splatter apart when he reached for it. That's it, you're both dead. I'm gonna kill you both with this damn ball. Suigetsu growled and snatched the ball up again. The time at the local town was lovely, and just what I needed. I had used the snake skin technique to let me not look quite so Orochimaru during my trip. I bought some clothes. I treated myself to a little something sweet. I flirted with the stall owner. Really just enjoyed some me time. It was the best 2.5 hours I've had since I came to this world. It wasn't worth it. Behind me a bucket line was frantically trying to put out a pulsing green fire that was eating at a wall, and yet also was somehow not producing any smoke. Several dead pigs also lay around me burning with a green smokeless fire that nonetheless was slowly burning the pigs to a charred husk. The two glanced over at each other, came to a conclusion together, and immediately came to a decision. She stole my subjects. / He was trying to take my research notes. They immediately tried to throw each other under the bus. It had only been after I arrived that someone decided to kill the on-fire pigs instead of letting them running around setting more things on fire. The two major people responsible sat Saiza before me with their heads bowed. So, would please tell me how exactly this happened? Rumiko-chan, Botan-kun. Their frightened faces attempted to hide behind their bangs. Did you at least discover something from all this? I asked and didn't even keep a cool facade up anymore, massaging my temples. They said, looking to each other with wide frantic eyes, both certain if they answered no to this I would probably kill them, which I didn't want to do, but killing people that fuck up on this scale is largely how Orochimaru keeps people from getting out of line. I would have no choice but to kill them. While both were not nice people, as will most all of Sound's sociopaths, I didn't want to kill someone over this stupid shit. Can you at least duplicate the smokeless fire? I said, trying to salvage it. A smokeless fire could be very useful to shinobi trying to hide. Yes. Definitely. / We can totally do that. I promise. Then you can try to produce it, without live subjects, and show me results within the month," I said as I turned to leave the two to collapse in relief. I then promptly went to my room, unsealed my shopping bags, and edited my urgent recall order for Kabuto to be the highest possible urgency. "I swear, it's like Aperture Science as run by Three Stooges. We need more support this weekend in the morgue." Kabuto looked up at the man and pretended to give a sigh of frustration. "I have to study, but I could possibly come in the morning." Kabuto gave the countersign. The messenger nodded and handed him what looked like medical reports bound up in twine. "It would be best if you came earlier." Kabuto kept surprise from his face. Whatever message Orochimaru had hidden in the documents was flagged as the highest possible emergency. "I'll try my best," he promised. His fellow spy nodded and quickly made himself scarce. Kabuto waited another half hour before excusing himself from work to decode the message hidden in the medical documents. Kabuto spent the next 20 minutes flipping through the pages and slowly applying his memorized cipher decoding the message. It was a recall order from Orochimaru directly, telling him that he needed to report back immediately to assist the Snake Sannin. It really didn't go into much beyond that his assistance was required. Kabuto was fairly confident it was just to provide medical expertise on a sensitive project. It wasn't anything he hadn't done before. He should send a copy of the message to Danzo and gain permission to go, but the last line of the message was making him hesitant. He had triple-checked that he was interpreting the code correctly. Kabuto found himself wondering if maybe he had been compromised. After all, there was no way that Orochimaru would send a message stating, "I can't leave for 2 hours to buy a bra without these morons doing something stupid." He finally had to admit defeat and came to the conclusion that one of Orochimaru's people had accidentally put a personal note in with the message. Mistakes did occasionally happen at what was basically the secretary level of the ninja spy game. So, he sent the contents of the message, minus the last sentence, off for his root contact to report to Danzo. He technically should wait around to receive permission from Danzo to leave, but he could probably get away without doing so since his summons was flagged at such a high priority. Kabuto made his excuses at the hospital, grabbed one of his preset travel packs, and was leaving the pit of hypocrisy that was Konoha in a shorter amount of time than it took him to decode the first message. His journey had him arriving at Oto's major hideout late in the evening, the time when most people will have finished their last meal of the day and would soon find themselves settling into their beds. Which was really Kabuto's least favorite time of the day. It was too late for most people to want to do business, and too early to kill someone while they slept. Kabuto started to head for Orochimaru's private office when he ran into Hibiki Nagisa, whose expression was that of a pinched lemon. "Oh, you're back," Hibiki said. Kabuto put on his plastic smile. "Yes. Orochimaru-sama had summoned me. He asked for me to report as soon as possible." Hibiki's face soured further. "Why?" The scientist was beginning to really try Kabuto's patience, but he made sure to keep the friendly smile on his face. Hibiki was simply worried that Kabuto was going to replace him. Part of the older man knew that the only reason he was around was because of how long he'd worked on the body-changing technique, and knew enough to assist the Snake Sannin. So it was only a matter of time before someone else learned enough to bump him out of his spot as second in command. Which was frightening, because one did not typically leave Orochimaru's employ with a retirement plan and health benefits. "I'm not sure. I don't make a habit of questioning Orochimaru-sama's decisions," Kabuto replied. "Ah. Yes, see that you don't," Hibiki said before turning away. "I will take you to him then." Then, to Kabuto's surprise, Nagisa did not head towards Orochimaru's private labs, but instead walked towards what Kabuto knew to be where they kept their laboratory volunteers, locked up. Orochimaru very rarely ever went there, preferring to send someone else to fetch a test subject if he needed one. Though quite a few things were beginning to show him that the layout of Otogekyo was likely very different compared to the last time he had been there. Painted walls, bright colors, more lighting. There was even the occasional potted plant and a few strategically placed benches. Kabuto couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It made no sense for Orochimaru to waste resources on such frivolous things. From what he knew of Orochimaru, the man probably wouldn't even think to add benches in the first place. "Nagisa-senpai. There have been lots of changes since I was last here. What's going on?" The older man gave a scoff. "Orochimaru-sama has ordered we make changes to our goals to focus on more long-term benefits rather than short-term ones. Increasing the strength of our soldiers through better training and having them stay mentally refreshed to best function as ninja. Orochimaru-sama stated his research has showed these decorative changes help with that," he said as if chastising Kabuto for not already knowing what the Snake Sannin had said. Kabuto, personally, just found he couldn't wait until he managed to take Hibiki's job. The man was insufferable. But if what the man had said was true, then Kabuto had much more to worry about. Danzo had never worried about Otogekyo since the place was obviously designed to fail at a moment's notice, to not seem threatening to the other village's power. If it was shifting focus to allow for a proper hidden village, there would be blood spilled. And it would be soon. Considering how Otogekyo was run, There was no way that this could last long without sweeping changes in administration. Kabuto suddenly had a very bad feeling. He knew exactly why it was that he was being recalled. It's open. Good. Orochimaru-sama is still here, Nagisa said as they closed in on what he knew to be the cell block where they kept all of the test subjects below the age of 10. Before him sat a heavy iron door completely coated in seals. The door had not been there before and, more surprisingly, was clearly designed not for keeping people in, but rather keeping others out. Far more of a shock was what he saw when he stepped into the room. Color. Bright primary colors painted all over the room. Colorful cartoon animals were all over the walls playing in fields of flowers and cheery sunlight. There was one spot on the wall painted a dark black, but children's chalk drawing covered its surface. Where there had been cells before, there were now small rooms with curtains to protect privacy, and a bunk bed equipped with a small dresser sat in each room too. None of that compared to what he observed next though. The acorn rolled down and down. All the children were gathered together on the pelt of a massive tiger. In the middle of them, on a rocking chair of all things, sat a woman that looked disturbingly like Orochimaru. The woman had a smiling child in her lap that was rapidly losing its fight against sleep, and this Orochimaru imposter was singing. He suddenly fell into a pond, singing beautifully and with a great amount of femininity. Kabuto looked over at Nagisa, hoping that there might be some other explanation for what exactly was going on here, especially since, going by the fact that Nagisa had told him he was taking him to Orochimaru, he was clearly indicating that this person was supposed to be the same one he had done a vivisection with the last time he was here. Nagisa was also staring with varying amounts of confusion, worry, and contemplation at the singing woman. Kabuto himself had trouble tearing his gaze of bizarre fascination on the woman wearing a purple turtleneck sweater. He however managed to do so when he spotted something else that made him do a double take. Guren, a ninja capable of using crystal release and one of Orochimaru's strongest jonin, was also in the room and currently placing an infant into a newly formed crib made of crystal. The pale woman with purple hair soon marched to them and hissed over to them. Why are you here? Orochimaru-sama does not wish to be disturbed. Kabuto's mind noted that the woman was taking pains to not be loud and interrupt Orochimaru's nursery song. He also observed that none of the children seemed to find the use of her crystal release particularly noteworthy, meaning that Guren, the same Guren that he knew always smiled at the possibility of bloodshed, was coming into this room on a regular basis and being assigned to watch children. Orochimaru-sama asked for me to report immediately. It was marked with highest possible urgency, Kabuto said with his standard issue smile. Guren turned her angry gaze to Nagisa. You were told to not come in here anymore. Ah. Well. Kabuto said it was urgent, so. The older man trailed off. Leave. Guren ordered Nagisa. Though to Kabuto she ordered. Go stand over there, and if I see you so much as approach one of the children I will turn you into a statue. Kabuto adjusted his glasses. Oh. What has you so protective? Gaining a soft spot are we? Guren scoffed. No. Orochimaru-sama has charged me with the protection of these children. None may lay a hand on them without permission. Orochimaru had assigned Guren, one of Otogekyu's strongest ninja, to constantly guard these children? That was a complete waste of resources. In any other village he'd say it was due to some ideal about the innocence of children, but this was Orochimaru. There must be some specific threat he was trying to combat. One of the children must be important. Or maybe it's just busy work for Guren. Era. Look at all those sleepy nodding heads. It seems we have arrived at bedtime, Orochimaru said, and in response the children groaned in complaint. They actually groaned at Orochimaru stopping her singing. While it did actually sound fairly good, it was still the Snake Sannin, the single most feared ninja of Konoha in the last 2 decades for his cruelty and pragmatism. These children were gripping her leg and, Can we stay up Orikidama? / Can't you read that story from last time again? / Next time I get to sit in your lap, right? Then it all clicked. Nagisa had said that Orochimaru was switching to long-term goals. The entire building was now made to make people to feel more at ease, more at home. Previously ninja were made to just be discarded, and only by being useful could they be allowed to survive. This was how many ninja villages operated. It was shown to be how you make the most people loyal for their entire lives. But this was more like Kumo and Konoha's methods, making people think they were valued and invest that ideal into a home. While it produced less middle-tier ninja this way, it consistently produced the most Jonin-level ninja. With Orochimaru changing bodies too, it was the perfect time for it. People put so much stock in appearances that with just a slightly different way of talking and looking just a bit different, people will subconsciously wave away previous actions. The obviously exaggerated matronly features were even more devious. The number of people that would die for their country was extensive, but the people that would die for family, for their mother? That was a far more impressive list. Orochimaru had spent years grinding down the wills of the people, making them lose hope, lose meaning, lose themselves. And now they were going to be giving it back, and the only person they will have to thank will be Orochimaru. It was brilliant. Inspired even. He wondered if Orochimaru had timed this specifically so he could see these children's naked devotion. So few people would understand what happened. Why it happened. Guren herself probably had no idea and thought that Orochimaru was truly doing this out of a sudden value for children, getting one of her strongest ninja to swallow this change of practice, while at the same time using her as an enforcer to make anyone very afraid of saying anything against Orochimaru's new standards. It was probably why he had been called back too. A new face in the administration to go with the new rules. Orochimaru, or rather Orochimaru, really had thought of everything. Orochimaru was already committing to this new persona even in secured communication, having themselves come off as just an overly busy innocent woman. The change would be so sudden most other villages wouldn't know what to do and assume false data or just wait to watch what happens, because ninja hate jumping into something when they have no idea what they are jumping into. It would buy her a few months, maybe a year, to build up the village to be something just troublesome enough to not be worth crushing. It was a gamble, but one that might just work. Era. You finally arrived, Kabuto-kun. I've been so excited for you to come back. Come with me to my office and we'll discuss what I need from you. Orochimaru said. Yes, Orochimaru-sama. Kabuto said with a knowing tone. The snake Sannin paused just for a moment, so slowly he almost doubted his judgment on the hesitance, before they turned to address Guren. That hesitation was telling. He couldn't be certain on what it was for, but he had clearly caught them by surprise when he used Orochimaru. But since no correction came, that was basically permission for him to use that name going forward. Do you need anything else for tonight, Guren-chan? No, Orochimaru-sama. Though. Guren hesitated, with a meaningful glance at Kabuto before admitting. We could use more of the diapers. We use them almost faster than we can clean them. Kabuto noted the Crystal Ninja's embarrassment about dealing with such matters as a future pressure point. I'll see it's done, Guren-chan. Kabuto just shook his head. What a masterful performance. I finally had Kabuto, and I was once again having mixed feelings on the matter. The Mednin had dropped a few hints at something and I really wasn't sure what it was. It had started when he first called me Orochimaru and I hesitated on deciding if I wanted him to actually call me that or not. Anything he called me would spread to others calling me that too. It should be fine. It initially started when a toddler had mangled saying Orochimaru-sama, and the others just kind of went with it. However, thanks to Orochimaru's training and memories, I'm pretty sure that Kabuto thinks I have some secret plan with all of this that I don't really have. I mean, outside establishing this place as a proper hidden village. He figured that out on his own and I had confirmed it. But he kept acting like there was a deeper secret, and seemed just amused when I said there wasn't one. Whatever it is that Kabuto thinks he understands though is working really well for me. When I had brought him to my office and told him what it was that I was wanting him to do, he seemed to immediately grasp the concept. You want me to limit any sort of injury or death of anyone in the facility, and you want me to enforce your new rules with as gentle of a hand as possible, while only killing someone when they directly choose to disobey one of your new rules with a stated intention to do so again. Yes, Kabuto-kun. That's exactly what I want. I understand, Orochimaru-sama. I had regularly been told that in the weeks leading up to that moment, and it was regularly proven to me that the other person did not understand. Just to make sure, Kabuto-kun, I'm going to ask some questions, I said. If someone asks you if it's okay for human testing of an assassination technique, how do you respond? For them to test it on an animal subject until polished enough to use in the field. Then to only use it in the field and not in fellow subjects of Otogekure. I gave a nod of agreement. If someone is found stealing from the kitchens, what is the appropriate response? Speak to them in private and inform them that their actions would greatly displease you, Orochimaru-sama, and that if they do not correct their behavior they will suffer your disappointment. I had been pretty sure he meant that with far more menace than I would want him to have. But that was loads better than the last time I had asked the question and had been told that they would have the offender dragged away to be force-fed live burrowing beetles. That would be fine. I'd add that since they are wanting more food we can offer them more missions that would increase their personal ration supply. Kabuto gave a nod. Yes. Addressing his concerns, on the questions went, with Kabuto showing he at least mostly understood what it was I wanted and only took a slight bit of correcting on some of his questions. He was even able to answer questions on why I wanted things done. And why don't I want us to do testing on a human subject until we know it's absolutely safe? We want good science with lots of data points to be able to understand best what we are doing, instead of just throwing away a resource. A resource that is a valued and loved part of Orochimaru-sama's village. My eyes narrowed because while the words were correct there was absolutely a feeling behind them that wasn't what I was looking for. However, beggars can't be choosers, and of all the candidates I've had thus far he was the only one that could at least answer the questions right, even if it wasn't in quite the way that I want. But I couldn't exactly inject human kindness into someone as of yet, so it would have to do for the moment. When you aren't managing the other workers I want you focusing on 2 projects. Both of which I will be assisting with. The first is trying to help Kimimara's condition. I've removed him from active missions for the moment so we can best make sure he is taken care of. Kabuto nodded. Yes. He is far too great of a resource for us to lose. I gave a nod. He wasn't wrong. When completely healthy, Kimimaro could challenge Hatake Kakashi in a straight fight, at least with his cursed seal form. Losing him would be a great blow to our village. The other thing is a technique I have that I want to put the finishing touches on. It will be purely theoretical polishing for the moment. Brief but genuine excitement crossed Kabuto's face. Orochimaru had managed to sway Kabuto to his side because he understood one thing about the spy. He loved to study. He loved to learn. Putting the finest polish on the theory behind something was practically a reward for Kabuto. In his life of no attachments, Kabuto had one thing to ground himself. His curiosity. The one thing Danzo allowed him to have. What technique will we be working on? Kabuto asked, mask of politeness in place. I hesitated. It was a technique I hated. The very concept behind it was almost insulting to my morality, but its utility was too great for me to ignore. Which also kind of scared me too. You will help me study the Edo Tensei. Kabuto gave me an eager smile. That probably wasn't completely fake. Which was probably a good thing. I needed his enthusiasm. I needed to do what I could to have him on my side. Because I had to leave soon. I had certain things I didn't trust to my subordinates. Plus, while I was quite strong, I needed to be stronger for the coming days. 1 month. I would stick around for 1 more month to make sure that Kabuto was capable of having things run without me present, then I would need to leave for several weeks. Soon it was time for me to actually go out into the world. God help them. Tayuya didn't really see what the big deal was. But how can we still be sure it's still Orochimaru-sama? He dash. Kadamura hesitated. She is acting completely different. Minimizing casualties. Most research is now about things like medicines and jutsu that anyone can use. It's completely different from what was being done before. Right. And someone that just so happens to know all of Orochimaru's past codes, techniques, and also just so happens to have a snake contract and the Kusanagi. Get real dumbass. It's the same person. Sakan mocked. The collective morons that made up the Sound Four had regularly taken to bickering about the boss's decision to act like some airheaded bimbo. It was really fucking weird, to be sure, but this constant arguing on whether they still serve the same master was just so fucking pointless. Sweet tits of Izanami, shut up! She growled. The rest of Orochimaru's personal guards turned to her. Well, most of them. None of them were dumb enough to have this conversation around Kimimaro. If she is or isn't the original doesn't fucking matter. She can still take us apart like tissue paper. Her strength is real and that's all that counts in this fucked up world. The ninja all shuffled in place. They had seen the strength for themselves. They knew she was right. Women shouldn't talk like that, Jirobo said. But the new Orochimaru is also training us personally. We'll all be much stronger if things keep going this way. I like this better. The fact we get way more pork is the real reason you're happy, fat ass, Tayuya said with a roll of her eyes. Couldn't have the tub of lard thinking that just because he agreed with her they were somehow friends or something. The stupid bickering cut out though. All of them knew for sure that Boss Lady still had real power. The power to rival the strongest ninja in the world. At the end of the day, nothing else really mattered. You follow the strong or you die. There was nothing else to it. Come on. We have 2 hours to finish this training before we gotta see Chief Snakiness. Let's get this over with, Tayuya said before turning back to the room full of moving targets and timed objectives. Orochimaru was making changes, and they needed to keep strong or they would find themselves one of the those dismissed from employment. Things were beginning to get under control. It had been 2 weeks and there hadn't been a single unintended death. I could go out and help train some ninja for hours at a time without having things literally catch fire. I was somehow receiving even larger amounts of requests for human testing though, but I was feeling better about things being somewhat stabilized. Taking Kabuto had been very helpful. I just hoped he wasn't reporting everything happening to Danzo or Sasori. I mean, he almost certainly had to tell them something, but I didn't need all my dirty little secrets reported. But after a month of having him assist in managing the din of psychos and idiots, I felt confident enough to leave the spy in charge of running things for a week. I needed to get some things done and the clock was ticking down on me being able to make great strides in fixing my problems with manpower, money, and supply lines all in one fell swoop. I even had the perfect thing to make sure that Kabuto didn't try and stab me in the back while I was gone. Someone who, in his own words, was the arch-nemesis of Kabuto. As a reminder, Nagisa-kun, don't confront Kabuto with any suspicions you have. If you see something, just report it to Gyurin or Kimimaro. They will know how I want them to respond. You won't be able to take Kabuto in a fight anyways. I realized that Nagisa was a little unfit for the job. However, I needed someone who actually understood all of the laboratory stuff to keep an eye on what was going on. Hopefully Gyurin and Kimimaro could manage to keep his rampant paranoia about Kabuto in check. I had already told the two to prepare themselves for a stream of baseless accusations. I will make sure to watch the traitor closely, Orochimaru-sama. I won't let him get in the way of our machinations, he said as he went into a bow. I briefly questioned my wisdom on giving authority to a man that used the word machinations without a hint of irony, but again told myself that I didn't really have a whole lot of options. Not if I wanted to leave this place for any significant amount of time, which really just meant I had to prioritize making sure Kabuto was completely loyal to me. Which was tricky because he'd made a life of making people believe he was completely loyal. How is the study on a cure for Kimimaro going? I asked, trying to change subjects before this could get into a rant on how I shouldn't trust the two-faced backstabber that just wants to take Nagisa's position from him. The man was probably right on all those fronts, but I had other things I needed to take care of. I have gone over Kabuto's results and have to concur. It does seem as though Kimimaro's sickness comes from a problem with his bone marrow, Nagisa said with bitterness. I had been afraid of that. Bone marrow was very hard to do anything with. Most medicine was already very filtered by the liver and kidneys and the body's other various filtration systems before the medicine ever got close to penetrating into the bones. Chakra also tended to have trouble interacting through the bones to reach the marrow as well. Keep the research up. When I return, I will assist in making this my highest priority, I said as dismissal. Yes, Orochimaru-sama, Nagisa said before bowing out of the room. As the door clicked behind him, I felt a great weight fall off my shoulders. Interacting with any of the people that literally worshipped me was always so exhausting, but Nagisa was the worst of them. It was incredibly relieving that I was going to be able to leave later that day. I stood up with a stretch before idly smoothing out my gray and purple sundress. I would have liked to have a larger variety of colors in my wardrobe, but it's apparently really hard to match outfits with the literally white skin and permanent purple lines under my eyes. I had options, but I found myself slightly more limited. Also, the sundresses seemed to really distress my minions. More so even than the turtleneck. So I took to only occasionally wearing the more feminine outfits. They had no reaction to the purple lipstick for some reason though. I had spent the weeks before deciding where exactly I needed to go, and what exactly it was that I needed to do. I had so many plans. Even outside of gaining strength for my village, I needed to get stronger myself too. I needed to be able to go toe-to-toe with the likes of Nagato. After I got a report from Konoha though, I saw an opportunity unfold that made me realize I couldn't afford to wait. A knock came at the door. Orochimaru-sama. You called for us, Sakan asked through the door. Enter, I ordered. The sound four were an odd bunch. They had mostly been chosen for their amount of chakra. Orochimaru needed them to be able to maintain his barriers for long periods of time. They were way too weak for them to really be bodyguards. They were still low-ranked jonin, and there was a vast sea between that and any of the Sannin. That said, the group seemed to hesitate on seeing me in a sundress. Aside from Kimimaro and Taiya though. Kimimaro apparently accepted me as Orikidama now, or at least noticed that I wasn't killing people for treating me like a woman. Taiya though seems to not give a single shit about who I am or what I wear. She's managed to take everything I have been throwing out with naught but a raised eyebrow. Era. So prompt, I said as the five bowed, 6 if you counted Yukon. Kimimaro-kun. I had told you that you didn't need to come to these meetings anymore. You're meant to be resting. My apologies. I know you intend to leave today and wanted to ensure that your personal guard were prepared for the dangers ahead. Kimimaro replied with eyes to the ground. I promptly crossed the room to him, and gently pulled him up by his elbow. That's no good. You have testing tomorrow. You need to be well rested because the marrow withdrawal is going to be exhausting, I ordered as I spun him around and had him stand just on the outside of my door. But nothing. Go rest or I'll assign Sujetsu to tattle on you. A grimace crossed the bone user's face, which for him was paramount to outright angst. I shut the door in his face. Now let's get down to business, I said as I clapped my hands together. Make sure that you all pack enough clothes, food, and toiletries for the next 2 weeks. Kidamaru and Taiya, bring as many sealing scrolls as you can without feeling like you are overloading yourselves. You two will be coming with me for this mission and will be fulfilling a mostly stealth and information gathering role. Sakan, you and Jirobo are going to dispatch from us along the way and start heading up the coast. You are going to be capturing an as of yet unnamed target. I will be contacting you by summon as soon as I find out who it is. Are there any questions? I asked as I walked back to sit on the edge of my desk. Yes, Yukon asked. What's our goal? What's the major point of the operation? To liberate a country from an oppressive dictator, recruit a shirtless demon, and to steal an empire, I chirped in reply. The four exchanged wary looks. Right? Sounds like fun. From my perch atop the desk, I started to swing my feet back to let out a dull thud every few seconds as my sandals impacted the front face of the desk. Oh, there will probably also be a bit where I try and unmess the heads of a few kids in the hopes they don't one day cause the end of the world, but you guys won't really be involved with that. Kidamaru clearly restrained himself from asking what the hell that meant. For this mission, avoid killing anyone as well. Most of the targets that actually pose a threat to any of us are ones I don't want killed, I ordered. Though I have a really important question for you all as well. The four once again exchanged a nervous glance. Between here and Wave, what's the best restaurant for us to stop at? It's been a decade since I've eaten anything in that area. Jirobo looked absolutely ecstatic. Travel by ninja running was fast. Not due alone to raw speed, but the simple fact that a well-trained ninja can ignore almost any obstacle in their path that isn't another ninja. Even with stopping for an hour to eat at a homey diner that served an amazing chicken ginger soup, the trip of several hundred miles took us less than 4 hours. When we reached the waters separating us from the Isle of Wave, Jirobo and Sakan separated from us to pursue their own objective. They would go to Gato's other major shipping operation further up the coast and await further orders. As we ran through the fog, I finally caught sight of what I had been looking for. A massive half-complete bridge hung over the water, visible even before I had managed to lay eyes on land. Damn. That thing's fucking huge, Taiya muttered. And well built, Kidamaru added. Whoever is building this wants it to stand event against 100 exploding tags, or just one angry midget and his horde of idiots, I added. I had always wondered why Gato hadn't just destroyed the bridge, but seeing the interwove beams of iron for myself quickly gave me the answer. The bridge was so reinforced with supports that the whole thing would be almost as expensive to take apart as it was to build the damn thing. A few seconds later we arrived on shore. Go, I ordered my 2 remaining guards. Rendezvous on the bridge at 2200. Stay out of sight. Information gathering only. No big risks yet. Yes, ma'am. The 2 sounded before heading off. I knew they weren't completely sold on my plan. They were likely wondering why we didn't just go in and forcibly take everything. The 3 of us together certainly had the power for it. Well, they'll learn. I ran off to start my hearts and minds campaign. Tsunami was always a bit resentful of her name. Their small island nation had experienced the disaster of the same name more than once. It was why almost no one built anything on the side of the island facing the ocean. Your home only stood a chance if it was halfway across the island from wherever the giant wave came from. She had often asked her dad why he would name her after something that caused so much destruction. He always had the same answer. When I was young, I saw a tsunami myself. Its power took my breath away. It made me realize the power of nature. The tsunami itself wasn't evil. It was. And the world quaked around it. I knew that any daughter I had, I would want to have that strength too. She was of the belief that he just thought it sounded cool. Her father had always talked a big game, and he had always managed to make things sound much more appealing than they actually were. Which was probably an even greater strength than his ability to build his bridge. The bridge gave people hope that things could change, which was really more important than the bridge itself. Bridges could have guards and tolls on it. The bridge wouldn't solve anything. It would just make it easier for the people to take their freedom back, but at the end of the day they'd still have to fight for it. Which is why when her father finally arrived with ninja to help protect him, in the hopes that it would spur people into being ready to fight, she kept herself from showing her disappointment. They got a cripple and 3 children. It was no reason to be rude to them. It wasn't their fault. They had risked their lives to keep her father safe. She just couldn't see these 3 little children being able to inspire the town to rise up like it would need to. They had already saved her father's life and they were his best shot on completing the bridge though, so they weren't out of the game yet. If there was one thing she had learned over the years in a fishing village, it was to not give up hope, because a sudden change of winds or a single cast of your net could bring you all your fortunes. So she made the best of the situation. The ninja had arrived and she needed to make sure they were fed for their time here. They brought some food stuff with them, thankfully, so she could just add that touch of home made with just some herbs and spices, which could still be found in town. It was hard to make an entire meal of peppercorn after all, so she had gone to town to look for some roots or herbs to help her father's protectors. However, she began to notice some things amiss. The streets were almost barren, and what few people she did see wore a smile as they clutched a package close to their chest. Smiles were a rare sight in this country. Intrigued, she continued her journey into the heart of the town as she heard a crowd in the distance. She could also hear the reason so many people were happy. Food! Someone is handing out food! Quick! Come to the market before it's gone! Someone is handing out food! The entire town seemed to be crammed into the market. Cries of thanks, need, and joy filled the air as the crowds slowly thinned one person at a time. Each person clutching a small parcel to their chest. Tsunami could hardly believe it. Someone was handing out food? No one that had the ability to help ever seemed to care about them beforehand. She wanted to believe it was true, that there were still good people in power in the world, but she suddenly found fear grip her heart as she realized who it might be handing things out. Gato and his men were the only ones with power. The irrational thought that they were handing out poisoned food to kill them all grasped her limbs and had her push rudely through the crowd. She shoved or pulled all obstacles out her way until she burst into the gap in the middle of the mob. The eye of the people storm held a small line of villagers that dissolved into the chaos of the crowd. However, that line led to someone unlike she had ever seen before. It was a woman with skin as pale as moonlight and the golden eyes of a beast. Era. No pushing. You have to wait in the line to get your food. The woman chastised her. Oh. Sorry. Tsunami muttered. The woman in the gray and purple sundress certainly didn't look like one of Gato's men. She smiled kindly and spoke softly. She also didn't have guards with half-drawn swords. All she had was herself and a large wooden crate that she was handing out to people one by one. A child came to the front of the line. It was Naruyuki's kid. The little girl probably couldn't remember the last time she had a full belly. Ah. A noble lady has come to have some of my humble food, the pale woman said, making the young girl blush and shyly look to the ground. Do you have someone to help you cook it? Yes. Grandma can cook, the child said. Enjoy, the stranger said as she handed over the brown paper package. Tsunami didn't know the stranger, but the woman was confident, and spoke with so much authority that the throngs of desperate people listened to her as she mandated an orderly line in her circle. Gato would never let someone like that live anywhere he controlled. She effortlessly did what he required legions of goons to do. Excuse me, Tsunami said as she approached. Can I help you somehow? That would be great, the woman said. It's just packages of rice and some pig's fat, so it's not heavy, but a second set of hands would speed this up. Tsunami hadn't done what she was expecting to do with her time in town, but she certainly wasn't going to miss out on being part of something that was making the people of Wave smile once again. I immediately thought that Tsunami was an absolute peach of a woman. The whole town seemed to know her and respect her. She made no comments about getting an extra portion of the food for helping out. She didn't seem to want anything from me at all. Tsunami just wanted to help people desperately in need and help me hand out food until nightfall. Thank you for the help, Tsunami-chan. You helped that go by much faster. Oh no, I'm much too old for the chan. Tsunami gave a dismissive wave. And if some of us can't assist when help comes for us, then Wave really wouldn't deserve to be saved. Era. You are plenty young and cute enough for everyone to call you chan, I said with a wink. Tsunami just looked confused by my response. I was barking up the wrong tree apparently. Do you have somewhere to stay the night, miss? Actually, I don't think you gave me your name? Tsunami asked pleasantly. You're right. I didn't, I responded. And I have my accommodations for the night. Thank you for your concern though. All right then. She relented easily. Though if you need anything, I live in the little house to the east, outside town. It's right on the creek. If you need anything you can find me there, or go to the bridge and ask for Tazuna. That's my father. Oh shit. I forgot what Tazuna's daughter's name was. Plus people look really different in person than they do as 2D drawings. I had no idea that I had spent the last 3 hours with someone that was actually pretty important to my plans. It had actually been my goal to try and find the bridge builder's home after handing out food. Granted, just one of many goals for the night, but I had just passed on someone taking me directly there without rousing any sort of suspicion. It appeared I'd have to do this another way then. So your father is the one building the bridge? I'll have to swing by in the morning to see if he or his workers need anything. That would be great. The promise of food will do a lot to motivate workers. I'll tell my father to expect you in the morning, Tsunami said with cheer. Sure. I promise. I'll swing by your house just after dawn. I'll be sure to set a plate for you at the breakfast table then, Tsunami promised. Are you sure? I've been known to eat a woman out of house and home. Tsunami was clearly wondering why I put an odd pause in the middle of my sentence. The sweet, innocent child. I was clearly barking up the wrong forest. It should be fine. The more the merrier, she replied. It took all of Orochimaru's training for me to give no reaction to that. Sure. I'll bring more food with me, I promised with a shake of my head. I distinctly did not offer to bring my clam, nor did I offer some fish. I just calmly waved goodbye and made my way to the other side of the island. I had to do some reconnaissance on Gato's warehouses and see what exactly it was that he was shipping illegally. The anime never really expanded on his operations and Orochimaru never considered him important enough to find out. It was time to see what exactly was hiding in Gato's warehouses. More importantly, it was time for me to see how I could make their contents work for me. By the standards of people that weren't ninjas, Gato had an ironclad security. The men were all alert and mindful of their surroundings. They had overlapping lines of sight. They even had regular checkpoints and ID cards. It was very impressive for a civilian outfit. Most Chunin probably wouldn't be able to get in without raising alarm. Though the difference between a Chunin and myself was the difference between a puddle and the ocean. All the preparation and defenses that Gato had made delayed me for about 3 more seconds than a padlock would have. Taking a peek inside each and every shipping container took quite a bit longer, since I also had to look behind the boxes to see if they were concealing something else. Gato was a smuggler, and those guys tended to have bolt holes in pretty much every place you can think of, and then a few you didn't. I had been expecting some of the typical smuggling stuff. Drugs, stolen paintings, and maybe even some human trafficking. Though what I found was kunai and exploding tags. Lots of exploding tags. I found opium and paintings too. Plus a room with handcuffs bolted to the wall. So my estimation of Gato had been too far off. Though considering the number of exploding tags Gato had, he certainly had a ninja backer. Outside of Zabuza, I had already suspected he had some connections, since missing men were not exactly easy to find, but this seemed to imply that there was someone even more directly involved with Gato. Someone invested in his business, someone I needed to look out for if I was going to complete my plans. I couldn't very well leave such a potent weapon just sitting here without me knowing where it was going. The collateral for the island could be huge. One could actually destroy every single home on the island with the amount of exploding tags I'd found. So I did a quick summoning and a dull brown snake blinked up at me, head tilting to the side as he looked at me. Yes. I look and smell a bit different than normal, I confirmed in a low tone. But I need you to watch this crate for me and come tell me if someone moves it or takes a bunch of stuff out of it. I'll reward you with 3 mice upon completion of the task. The snake flicked its tongue out in thought before nodding its head. Thank you, Azuma-kun, I said as I gave his head a few loving pats. Before the Orochi merge, I had been scared of snakes. Spiders and other creepy crawly things I had always been fairly nervous around as well. However, I now had hundreds of hours of memory of things much worse and far more disgusting, not to mention years of memories of being literally inside snakes. It inured me to the creep factor of everything that slithers and scuttles. I even found the danger noodles to be somewhat cute, something I hadn't really thought previously. My summons slithered under the pallet of exploding tags and I made my own swift exit, leaving no sign of my presence. The remaining warehouses I checked weren't nearly as interesting. Some food, some clothing, a decent amount of swords, and a crap ton of what I recognized to be field rations. At each place I found food, I skimmed a little of it off the top, but never took enough for it to be overtly noticeable. Warehouses always had a certain amount of shrink after all. Soon I left the docks with my spoils and made my way to the bridge. I had underlings waiting to report after all. One thing I don't miss from my old world was light pollution. The passive light from a large city made it where most of the stars in the sky weren't visible, requiring one to travel to distant mountains, open seas, or vacant deserts to see the true majesty of the night sky. That wasn't a problem most places here though. Unless you were in the capital, or a hidden village, the night sky was available for everyone to look up in the sky and see just how very small the human race was. Hey boss lady. We're back. Tayuya's voice came, sounding casual despite her bow of respect. Glad to see you both made it back safe and sound, I said as I again turned my gaze up towards the ocean of stars above me. The sound of waves lapping against the bridge below me was incredibly comforting. Were there any problems? No, Orochimaru-sama, Kadamura said. Though a ninja wearing a hunter mask of mist seemed to sense me for a moment, they did not raise any alarms. Haku had sensed him? That was impressive. Kadamura was no slouch when it came to stealth. I don't think you will have a problem with him for the moment, so long as you didn't linger in watching the injured demon of the mist too much. So avoid doing that. Yes, ma'am, the two chorused. Anything of note found? I asked. Yes. He's currently set to send some big shipment to a major client. None of his men are sure who it's for though. When it came up near Gato, he would suddenly change the subject to the bridge. Not surprising. The one crate of exploding tags was worth more than the entire contents of all the other shipping containers. There wasn't a way to mass produce exploding tags, so they were never cheap. Did anyone mention where the big package is being shipped to? No. Not even the ship it's meant to go out on, Kadamura said. I heave a sigh and pull out my smallest sealing scroll. This particular sealing scroll had been designed to maintain the temperature of its contents. In moments I had a kettle of hot apple tea with honey mixed in. I handed 2 of the cups over to my minions. Kadamura looked like I just asked him to kill himself, and Tayuya just gulped down her tea without tasting it. I silently swore I'd one day get one of my people to have tea with me without them thinking it was some sort of plot. Era, Kadamaru. It's just tea. It just seemed to be the perfect weather to enjoy warm tea under the stars. Kadamura followed Tayuya's example and downed the whole cup, then sat very still, as if waiting for symptoms. Kadamura-kun, please just make us some hammocks under the bridge. The weather is just a bit chilly, but nothing a blanket won't solve. Tomorrow I want the 2 of you to find out some local legends. Something that comes out of the water and destroys ships. Every coastal town has them. Then I want you to use those legends to not let a single ship get more than a kilometer away from port, I said, switching to something they better understood. Decide which of you will be best suited to stopping ships, and the other will continue to find more information on Gato. Fine. I'm willing to give this Gato bastard a black eye. Heard him talking about ninja with his men like we are just some thugs with smoke and mirrors. Tayuya spat. I hope he chokes on his lobster breakfast. Lobster breakfast? I asked. Yeah. The midget apparently wants a lobster breakfast and eggs with fucking caviar in the morning. I mulled that over in my mind before deciding it would be a good idea to give Gato something to worry about other than the nearby town. Taiyuya-chan, while Kadamura-kun is setting things up for us, would you be so kind as to go shopping for me? I asked the kunoichi. I didn't want to show up to my new breakfast meeting empty-handed after all. Hatake Kakashi came to consciousness, and immediately cast his senses out for any feeling of killing intent. When none was found, his mind slowly began to focus on things like remembering where he was, why he was in so much pain, and what smelled like teenage boy. He sat up with a groan, prompting a cry of Kakashi-sensei. The sound helped to further his migraine. Sakura had a lot of potential in her, but sweet Aika did she have a shrill voice sometimes. And no, he wasn't being biased just because of his migraine. Sakura, please don't scream when people are just waking up. He groaned as he looked at what was probably the bridge builder's home. Or at least a room in it. It was sparse of decoration, though he spotted 2 sleeping bags that explained where the teenage boy's smell was coming from. In short order, Sakura had gathered the rest of the team, and the 3 gave him a brief report on what had happened after he lost consciousness. Well, 2 of them gave a report. Naruto gave. Then after you went all ugh and fell, then we were all like hung and you were really heavy, but I managed to carry you with a little help. Then we saw this really colorful frog, right, and Tazuna said it was poisonous, so we should totally get some of its poison. But there was this tree that looks super haunted just away down the road dash. Well, he'd have a talk with him later on what constitutes a mission report. Then, when Kakashi had just gotten done going over the fact that Sabuza was probably alive and the 3 genin had their minor little freak out over that, a woman he was guessing to be Tazuna's daughter stuck her head into the room. Oh, you're awake? Well, I wanted to let you all know that I'm about to start on breakfast, and you should know that I invited a guest to come by, so I don't want any of you worried when a stranger comes to the door. Kakashi found himself pausing. It wasn't unusual for people to have guests, though the timing did have him concerned. Ma. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thanks for the heads up. Mind if I ask who is coming by? For security reasons. Kakashi reassured. You know, I don't think I got her name, she admitted. Little alarm bells started to go off in Kakashi's head. Oh? How did you meet? An invitation to your home when you don't even know the person's name is a bit odd, he said with his typical lackadaisical manner. Yeah. But she's really nice. She was handing out food in the town to everyone. She might have even saved lots of people's lives. I told her the least I could do is have her by for breakfast. Tsunami promised. Charity wasn't unheard of. He recalled several times in war seeing the determined faces of those that just wanted everyone to stop being in so much pain and pursued that goal with their whole hearts. Hell, the thing that kept him from just writing off all of humanity were the people handing out food to the downtrodden in war-torn areas. There have always been people with hearts so big that they couldn't just watch people die of sickness and disease. However, said person was a ninja or had their backing to be able to accomplish anything. In this case, someone had gotten large amounts of food on the island without somehow using Gato's docks. That took ninja stealth, or being on Gato's payroll. What a nice lady! Naruto yelled. Is she like a priestess or something? They don't have to be a priestess to be nice, Naruto. Sakura chastised. I'll be sure to help you cook for her though, Tsunami-san. That's what they are in all of the stories. Naruto defended. Only Sasuke seemed at all suspicious of the coming guest as the other 2 bickered. This woman. What does she look like? Sasuke asked. Oh. Well, her skin was perfectly white. She had long black hair. She looked about my age. Oh. And her eyes were this golden color and were silted, like a snake's. The bells in Kakashi's head were no longer little. They were big gonging bells that sounded for miles with a marching band as backup. He tried to remain calm though. Tsunami was talking about a woman. Orochimaru was a man, and while the Sannin could obviously disguise himself as a woman, if he was going to put on a disguise he wouldn't leave the hallmarks of his appearance still present for all to see. So the better question is, who would have something to benefit from having people think that Orochimaru was a giving soul? I'll go keep an eye out for her, Sasuke said, giving a nod to indicate it was to see if the guest was coming with anything suspicious. Ma, no need, Kakashi said with a wave of his hand. Best to stick around here. But Dash, Sasuke started, I'd feel more comfortable if you were here to help me out. Kakashi interrupted. Fear crossed Sakura's face. She was a smart kid and could put 2 and 2 together. Once she grew a little less naive, she would be a wonder to work with. Though her skill in combat wasn't great, she had a solid foundation for however she decided to develop as a shinobi. She was smart, quick on the uptake, and knew how to follow orders. She was also absolutely not equipped for this mission. None of the genin were. And that was before someone with a connection to the most dangerous Sannin was set to visit for breakfast. Well, I'd love to meet her, Kakashi told Tsunami, who was beginning to catch on to the tension in the room. I'd love to ask her what brought her here, and see if she could assist us in protecting your father. His genin immediately caught on to what he meant. She was a possible threat, but not a confirmed one. Whoever this was could just be someone who was set to throw their hat into the proverbial ring before they even showed up. The weird female Orochimaru bit was probably just part of someone's plan. He just needed more information on what was happening. It could be that this other player was also opposed to Gato, which could mean an ally. His cute little genin immediately understood what he meant with that one line. How's she supposed to help against Gato? She's not a ninja, Naruto asked. Well, 2/3 of his genin got it. There are lots of ways to assist us, Naruto. Gato will also have plenty of soldiers. If she has food, she might have the resources to help get the island to make sure we don't have to fight his men and Zabuza again, Kakashi said as a half-truth. Oh, yeah, that makes sense, Naruto said as he folded his arms over his chest and nodded his head as if he were the one who figured it out. At least he was a cute kid. Tsunami-san, do you happen to have a pair of crutches that I can use? Kakashi asked. Sure. I'll go get them real fast, the woman promised as she exited the room. Sasuke, Kakashi said seriously, as soon as you hear the door knock, head to the roof. Don't engage with anyone unless you hear fighting. The dark-haired boy gave a nod. Hey, wait, what's going on? Naruto asked. Sakura, do your best to stay between Tazuna and this newcomer. Wait. The nice lady is bad? Why? Naruto asked. Think, dumbass, Sasuke growled. The woman had enough food to feed an entire town of people. Think about how we got here. Now how did she get that much food in? I mean, she could have, stolen it from Gato. Naruto shouted triumphantly. Yep. She could have, Kakashi confirmed. She might be an ally. But my concern is her description. Everything but the gender matches to one of Konoha's missing nin. What? Naruto asked, voice soft. What missing nin, Kakashi-sensei? Sakura asked in concern, while Sasuke's face grew dark, no doubt thinking about Konoha's other S-class missing nin, Orochimaru. A former student of the third Hokage. Sasuke and Sakura had the appropriate reactions to that news. Naruto though, oh. Well, that makes sense then, the blonde says as he puts his arms behind his head. Huh? Kakashi found himself asking. Well, I mean, the third is a huge pervert, right? So his student would absolutely know the power of sexy no jutsu, Naruto said with a nod. Kakashi ran his hand down his face. No, Naruto, I'm pretty sure that isn't what's happening here. How strong is this Orochimaru? Sasuke asked. The boy had a taste of a Jonin's power the other day, and it clearly showed on his face that he wanted to know if he had any chance. Kakashi knew he couldn't let them have hope of taking Orochimaru in a fight. With that in mind, he gave his response. You remember during the bell test how I completely outclassed all of you? Well, Orochimaru can do that to me. That managed to get through Naruto's head. The boy finally seemed to realize what kind of threat this guest might pose. Now this is probably not actually Orochimaru. He has never been the kind of person to hand out food to starving people. He also hasn't given any indicators that he might try to pass himself off as a woman. It was a cornerstone of fake identities and illusions that you use as much of yourself as you can get away with. It makes the job easier, so there wasn't really a reason for Orochimaru to try and disguise himself as a woman in the first place. Naruto, if a fight breaks out, I'll need you to flood the room in clones. As many as you can make. Then get Tazuna-san and his family out of the house. Yes, sir, Naruto said with a salute. Kakashi-san? I got you those crutches, Tsunami's voice said through the door. A few moments later, Kakashi situated himself downstairs, seated in a corner that gave him line of sight on every window and door on the first floor. Naruto was arguing with the client's child about their merit as ninja, Sakura was assisting Tsunami with boiling some rice, and Sasuke lurked at the stairs. Their placement was about as ideal as he could ask for. Right when he was about to assure himself that he was overreacting, he felt it. A powerful presence that was making no attempt to hide itself was approaching the house at a leisurely pace. Kakashi felt his eyes widen. The presence was less than 10 meters from the door, and he couldn't sense it only moments before. While he wasn't on the level of many people that could sense chakra, he was a decent hand at it if the person wasn't actively trying to conceal themselves. It was typically polite to not hide your presence when approaching an ally, and his time in ANBU had helped him learn to pick out specific people by their chakra signature. Most people identified a person's chakra by the feel of their chakra natures. One of Kakashi's closest comrades in ANBU he only knew by his harmony of water and earth with shockingly low levels of wind chakra. People better than he said they could also feel general personality traits in someone's chakra, though Kakashi had never managed that. The presence Kakashi felt. The unabashed signature happily announcing who it was. He could tell they had more chakra than he could shake a stick at. He could feel that they had a strong nature of wind with a solid undercurrent of earth. All of it felt exactly like Orochimaru's chakra had to him the one time he met the man. A knock came at the door, and he almost shouted at Tsunami to not open it. But he reminded himself that Orochimaru was probably not going to be stopped by 3 centimeters of worn wood. The entire building attached to it was equally useless. The only hope they had was that the snake Sannin was not here to kill or kidnap any of his genin. Should that not be the case, well then most of his plans involved using suicide techniques that would possibly buy his team a few seconds to get away. Maybe long enough for one of them to think of something clever. After the small eternity it took for Tsunami to reach the door, Kakashi could practically feel the Shinigami's hand clutching his heart in its cold hands. Then the door opened and, "Hello, Tsunami-chan. I brought gifts." A woman in a white dress with pink and purple flowers stood in the door. Her hair was tied back with a purple bow. She had no visible weapons and instead carried a basket of lobster, eggs, and caviar. Yet the summoner's mark on her arm and her snake eyes were rimmed with familiar purple lines. Era. If it isn't Kakashi-kun! You've grown! Kakashi could only make an odd mumbling sound that turned into a wheeze as his mind processed what was in front of him. If he didn't die, they were going to put him in an asylum for what he was going to put in the report. Kakashi sounded vaguely like someone had just punctured a bagpipe, which made it fairly clear to me that he had apparently remembered the feel of Orochimaru's aura chakra. Well, not exactly. One of Oto's sensors had informed me, after much hours of study, my chakra seemed to have a lot more yin energy in it. The presence of more of the female energy did not seem suspicious to anyone that knew. At least no more suspicious than everything else I was doing. "So glad you could make it," Tsunami said as she approached me, though when her eyes landed on my basket of food, they widened. "Oh my! You didn't have to bring such expensive ingredients for just a little breakfast." "Oh, it's no problem, Tsunami-chan," I reassured. "If I hadn't grabbed them they would have gone to a waste." "Don't you mean go to waste?" Naruto asked me with innocent eyes. "Nope," I chirped in response. "What are you doing here?" Kakashi seemed to have recovered himself, his voice filled with steel and resolve. The man doubtlessly preparing to nobly sacrifice himself so that his students could find time to escape from the terrible murderer that brought them caviar and lobster to have for breakfast. Era. "So serious, Kakashi-kun. I'm just here to help some of the locals," I promised. Kakashi seemed taken aback by my comment. "You expect me to believe that you, Orochi-Tama?" I interrupted him. "What? Orochidama," I responded. "That's what I go by now." "See Kakashi-sensei," Naruto yelled. "This isn't that guy you were worried about. She just has a similar name." The blonde seemed now very relaxed in the situation as he came to conclusion that, because my name was 2 syllables different, Kakashi was just mistaken about me. Cute kid. People had a lot of work ahead of them to make sure he doesn't die a very early death. Sakura, meanwhile, could clearly tell that Kakashi was high-strung but wasn't very sure on why. She also had the sense to not draw a weapon since Kakashi wasn't doing that either. Kakashi was also clearly trying to see what angle I might have for having people call me Orochidama as well. "That can't be all you are here for," Kakashi finally said. "Kakashi-san?" Tsunami interrupted. "I don't know what your past is with Orochidama, but if you keep acting like this to a guest I'll dash." "It's okay, Tsunami-chan," I interrupted. "He has good reason to be suspicious. And I do have another reason for being here," I admitted. Kakashi's gaze slid towards Naruto, and he stepped a bit closer. "Oh, relax. I'm not here for you or your team. I'll explain over breakfast, since I for one am famished." Kakashi reluctantly gave a nod, likely realizing that, at the very least, I wasn't going to kill anyone this second. That or he just came to terms with the fact that if I did want to do something there wasn't much of anything he could actually do to stop me. "Sakura, can you please assist in making breakfast? Naruto, go tell Sasuke to come inside." I mentally translated the copy nin's words to their true meaning. "Make sure she doesn't poison us while I stand to the side and watch like a hawk." I'm not sure why, but I found Kakashi's rampant paranoia endlessly amusing. The man had very good reason to be paranoid about me, but all of his blustering, demands, and preparation I just found cute, since we both knew that he had literally nothing to stop me. It was probably really stressful for him though. I idly noted that Tazuna had entered the room with a scowling Inari. The two didn't much react to my presence beyond Tazuna checking out my ass before addressing me. "You must be the one that Tsunami told me about. I'm Tazuna. Thank you so much for what you are doing for Wave." The bridge builder greeted with a bow. "It's nice to meet you, Tazuna-san. I'm Orochidama," I greeted back, before crouching to put me near eye level to Inari. "And who's this?" The child shuffled his feet and looked down, not meeting my eyes, and gave a mumbled "Inari." "Well, nice to meet you, Inari-chan," I said sincerely. "I'm not very familiar with your mom's kitchen, so can you help me with making breakfast?" In the corner of my eye I noticed Sakura beginning to relax. Kakashi, however, seemed to be weighing the value of Tsunami's child and the lives of his team, and feeling really guilty about the answer he was coming up with. "Kakashi, relax. You're going to give yourself gray hairs," I joked, "and make your futile attempts at making sure I do nothing dastardly from a sitting position. A stiff wind could push you over." "Listen, bastard. Kakashi-sensei just said to come inside," You want to know why? You ask him! Naruto shouted as the front door swung open, admitting Ninja Jesus and Ninja Antichrist into the home. Era. This must be the last member of your team, Kakashi-kun, I said as I spied the last Uchiha walk into the room. Sasuke, Kakashi said in a formal tone, which immediately made Sasuke on edge. This is Orochimaru. Kakashi-kun, I thought I told you. It's Orochimaru, I corrected as I walked into the kitchen and grabbed one of Tsunami's aprons. Sasuke's eyes grew yet wider and he looked to Kakashi. You mean the man who dash? Sasuke started. Well, appearances can be deceiving, Kakashi said in what seemed like reassurance to most of the room. Sasuke took it for what the jounin intended. A warning to not trust the nice lady act I was giving. Hey! Orochi lady, Naruto interrupted. You are a ninja, right? I am, I acknowledged before turning to the counter. Inari, get me a big bowl and a pot. Sakura, as soon as he does, can you please start cracking eggs into the bowl? I took charge of the kitchen from there, ordering the various members in the house on menial tasks. From having Naruto fetch some water, to Tsunami preparing the rice, to Sakura beating the eggs, and even having Inari help me crack open the lobster's shell. All the while Kakashi sat on a nearby stool, staring with an almost unblinking gaze to see if I added anything into the mix that didn't belong there. Sasuke's gaze hardened every time my hand strayed to a kitchen knife. Sakura constantly had to remind herself to not just get into the cooking process. Tazuna was also staring, though for very different reasons. Soon I was frying the rice and the beaten eggs. The already cooked lobster meat was added in. A few spices thrown on for taste, and caviar thrown in at the last second. It was the most expensive breakfast I'd ever had. Well, Tsunami, if you would put these in bowls, I have some questions to answer, I said. The other woman gave an affirmative and I settled myself at the dinner table, idly fanning myself to cool down from the stove's heat. So, to answer your earlier question, Kakashi-kun, I have a question in response. Kakashi, Sasuke, and Naruto all came to the table, while Sakura hung back in the kitchen. What's your question? Kakashi asked after he seated himself. How exactly do you think that Gato, a civilian, managed to get a hold of Zabuza? The man is one of Kiri's most wanted missing nin. Yet he managed to recruit him. How would you think such a thing could happen? Zabuza could have found him, right? Because he needed money, Naruto asked. I gave a nod. True. But why would he do that, when Gato could then make a profit by informing Kiri on his location? Someone introduced them then, Sasuke concluded. And I bet you know who that is, Kakashi accused, clearly thinking that it was me that introduced the two. Era. So suspicious. I shook my head. But no. It wasn't me. Though it is why I'm here. Gato has a ninja backer. Someone is helping him with his business. I'm very interested in who that someone is. So what? You just going to go and beat it out of him? I can probably go kick his ass. Naruto smacked a fist into his palm. Oh no. Nothing like that. I shook my head. I just intend for Gato to have some very bad days for the next few days until he gets panicked, and his big scary demon of the mist is in recovery. Kakashi connected the dots I had laid out. You want Gato to run off to alert his contact so you can get that contact for yourself. Sharp as ever, Kakashi-kun, I acknowledged. Rather than confirm the theory, this seemed to make the man question it instead. Why hand out the food though? Sasuke asked. That doesn't serve your goals. I looked at the dark-haired child, who already held such a dim view of the world that he felt the need to question acts of charity. Though I granted that it would serve him well in his chosen career path. In the ninja world there was often no such thing as too paranoid, which is really the only reason I've managed to get away with most of the shit I've pulled. Let me ask this instead, Sasuke-kun. Why is the mission to build the bridge important? Sasuke turned the question over in his head for a while. They want to break Gato's monopoly on the transport to the island. He owns the docks, so this is a way for them to be able to get things another way. I gave a nod. That's a good theory. A good story too. You just need another way for people to get what they need and Gato's power collapses. I turned to Tazuna, who had been lingering nearby, listening to the conversation. Tazuna, how hard do you think it would be for Gato to take over your bridge after you've built it? To make all incoming and outgoing traffic pass through his control? Even Naruto realized how easily the man could do just that. Then why? Why go through all this trouble if Gato is just going to be able to take over it? What are we here fighting for then? Naruto slammed a palm down on the table. Sasuke's face had grown darker. An excellent question, I responded. Tazuna, enlighten them. The aging bridge builder heaved a sigh as the weight of the entire island settled on his shoulders. The old man collapsed at the table. She's right. The bridge by itself won't do anything. It's why I've managed to build as much as I have without anything happening, Tazuna admitted. Gato doesn't care about the bridge itself. He cares about what it gives to the people. Hope? Sasuke scoffed. Yes. One of the most powerful weapons in the world. I piped up. Hope has been the cause of the rise and fall of more countries and causes than you can count. Hope is a powerful thing. It makes people act in ways that aren't their best interest. It makes people stand up, put their lives on the line. It makes them rise against tyrants. But why does it give hope? Why do people think it will fix their problems? Naruto asked, scratching the back of his head in question. Because I told them it would, Tazuna admitted. I told them that if it was completed we'd be able to fight against Gato. And with that promise people made plans to fight. So, it's not about the bridge? It's about getting people to fight? Whiskered cheeks scrunched inwards. Why not just make people fight then? Just waiting till a bridge is there is stupid. Of course it is. We're dealing with people, Naruto-kun. I responded as Tsunami and Sakura approached the table, bowls in hand for everyone. So that's why you were handing out food. You want to help the people be hopeful. You want them to rise against Gato. Sasuke concluded. Well, I did say I wanted him to feel pressured. Doing it in a way that helps people makes everything just that little bit better. I said as I took an offered bowl from Tsunami. Now both you boys get up. Let Tsunami and Inari have a spot to sit and eat. The two acquiesced quickly, allowing a spot for the mother and child to sit. Kakashi, meanwhile, stealthily dumped a few vials of liquid into his food. Doubtlessly something meant to detect poisons. Meanwhile, Naruto jumped up and practically danced with his bowl. Thanks. I'm starving. The boy began to shovel the food into his mouth. Sorry. I planned on having some breakfast ready earlier, but got a little tied up with doing some cleaning. Tsunami apologized. Not being able to resist such a line, I rested an elbow on the table, placed my chin on top my fist, and gave my best husky tone. Oh Tsunami, I can find much better ways for you to be tied up. Tazuna froze as conflict stormed on his face. Inari and Naruto found nothing of note with my statement. Sasuke and Tsunami both looked confused. Kakashi just stared at me, as if asking me how he should react that. The big surprise is that Sakura choked on her food. Really, Sakura-chan? What sort of books have you been reading? I tooted. Kakashi-kun. Have you been a bad influence? I really shouldn't have been surprised though. A girl just in puberty that constantly thinks about a boy and spends most of her time reading books? Personal experience should have warned me better than that. Sakura, after she finished choking, gave a weak denial. It just went down the wrong tube. I didn't know anything. Sure thing, sweetie. I said, not wanting to keep the subject going enough for the other two to catch on. They had enough corruption, they didn't need this kind too. Well, everyone eat up. You three in particular. Your sensei needs to get you all training. Kakashi once again looked at me in shock. No, Kakashi-kun. I can't read your mind. I stated, though that got me a flat look in response. Are you going to kill us after all the bad jokes? Because if so, I'd just like to skip to that part. He groused. I gave a smirk. There is only so long a person can go on while terrified for their life before the terror becomes just a general wariness. Training? Training what? Is it going to be a cool ninjutsu? Oh man, we're going to learn to make things go all like swish, and then blam, and then have it go all boom, the blonde said while swinging around his now empty bowl. Gato's caviar probably didn't even really register for him. Era. Swish, blam, and boom? All the ones I know can only do 2 of those max. Yeah, well, Kaka-sensei knows 1,000 jutsu, so you shouldn't feel too bad about it. Naruto comforted. Orochimaru had a goal to learn off the world's jutsu. He had spent a long time trying to accomplish that before his demise. The number of them he knew were well past 1,000. Oh? I'll be sure to pay attention then. I took one last bite of my food, finishing the food off. Well then, please, do teach me something, Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi smacked one hand to his face. Naruto, just dash. He took a breath. Just go get my crutches. Hatake Kakashi had come to the conclusion that Orochimaru was just trying to mess with his head. The snake summoner's comments and motions were all attempts to provoke a reaction from him. The woman was clearly watching him. Almost everything she said or did she turned to see what his reaction to them was. The woman bit was also surprising. More surprising was that he found himself buying the idea that Orochimaru was, in fact, female. It was the small motions. The way she walked, the way she sat, the way she talked, the way she flirted. All of it was very female. This was not someone who just decided to try on some breasts to see if they could get a reaction. Kakashi was really not sure what to do with that information. So what are we actually learning? Sasuke asked, his gaze still locked on Orochi, Tama walking beside an excitedly chattering Naruto. Aside from how to deal with unexpected interference in missions, you'll learn how to climb trees. Kakashi responded. Sasuke's eyes narrowed, though the Uchiha didn't press it. Which was good. Sasuke had really impressed him with how he was handling the snake Sannin's appearance. All of his genin were impressing him in different ways. Sasuke clearly picked up on Kakashi's own distrust, and with just a few words knew he needed to be near a teammate, and ready to act at a moment's notice. He also kept very close notice on every movement that Orochimaru made. Sakura was doing a great job in prioritizing the protection of their clients. The girl was clearly unsure if Orochimaru was actually a threat, but she was taking textbook perfect precautions to keep the clients safe. Even Naruto, who seemed to decide that Orochimaru was his new best friend, was noticeably not bringing up any information that wasn't already discussed. Naruto was doing a lot of talking, and most of it was gathering information while giving only vague comments and well-known facts in return. He probably wasn't doing it consciously, but Kakashi could already tell he'd set Naruto with all assets he needed information out of in the future. He just hoped that his cute little genin lived through this encounter, though he was growing sure that Orochimaru wasn't going to kill them. At least not now. She probably wanted them around to draw attention, to have another thing Gato was worried about. Because he was pretty sure that part was truthful. Gato had a ninja backer. In retrospect, he was almost embarrassed he hadn't realized that himself. Kakashi was very positive that the contact was not the only thing Orochimaru had shown up for though. Otherwise she wouldn't have made contact with him and his team, and there are far better ways to make someone panic than handing out food to a repressed population. He just hadn't managed to see the whole picture yet. Kakashi-sensei, Sakura said timidly and quietly. Why is it that she's coming with us to train? Because he couldn't leave me alone with his client. Orochimaru replied loudly, causing Sakura to jump a little. Kakashi made a note to himself to work on wordless communication with his team when they got back home. She's right. I couldn't leave her with the client. Kakashi admitted he also kept quiet that the other reason was because there wasn't a damn thing he could do to stop the Sannin from doing whatever she pleased. He just hoped that once he got the kids on their training exercise she'd get bored and leave. Kakashi cast his gaze about. They were in a clearing that would serve his purposes well enough. The sooner this started, the sooner he could go to bed and pretend this was all a fever dream. So, you guys are going to be learning how to climb trees. We already learned how to climb trees. That was like the first lesson in the academy. Naruto complained. Not like this. You are going to learn to climb trees without your hands. Kakashi began to make his way over to a tree when a white hand reached out to stop him. How about you let someone not suffering from chakra exhaustion do this, Orochimaru said before calmly walking herself up the tree and out onto a branch. Kakashi marveled slightly at the level of chakra control she was also showing by keeping her dress and other bits still in place. The tree climbing exercise is one of great benefit to a genin. It helps train your chakra control, which can in turn be used to have you move faster, hit harder, and of course walk on any surface. Orochimaru said. She was willing to give lessons to his genin? That was worrisome. Was that why she was doing this? To have one of his team go off with her and think she was just some nice ninja lady? It wasn't a horrible plan actually. All three of his students would be very attractive recruits for someone like Orochimaru. If this was all just part of a recruitment drive for his students, Kakashi suddenly became very worried he'd be seeing a whole lot more of Orochimaru. Doing his best to not show his disquiet on his face, he threw 3 kunai into the ground. Give it a try yourself, use a kunai to mark your progress. A running start will help too. The 3 genin did as instructed. As you run you have to be careful with how much chakra you are using through your feet. Too much and you'll break the wood. Too little and you won't stick. Naruto was the first to fall. He had gotten a few steps up the tree before his feet began to slip out from under him as he used too little chakra. Sasuke just about reached the first branch when the bark cracked under him. Meanwhile Sakura was taking a light jog to the upper reaches of the tree with seemingly no effort. Era. Impressive Sakura-chan. I've only ever seen one person manage to do that well on their first try. Orochimaru congratulated. Kakashi managed to contain his own shock. He knew that Sakura would do better than the other two. Her control was impressive, but he didn't think she'd manage it on her first try. Good job too, Sasuke-kun. That's a little bit farther than I managed the first time I tried this. She complimented further. Naruto-kun, you might want to burn some chakra off first before you try again. That had Kakashi coming up short. Huh? Naruto asked. What does that have to do with being able to climb the tree? For once, Kakashi found himself agreeing with his student. He wasn't sure why Naruto would want to do that either. You have lots of chakra, Naruto-kun, the woman said as she detached from the tree branch and flipped to land in front of the boy. Kakashi was positive that the flash of Saturn he got was entirely intentional, and it made him very uncomfortable. Orochimaru gave a pat to the boy's head. So much energy in such a small package means that your chakra has a higher density than most people's. Density? Sakura asked from her spot on a nearby branch. Yeah. Imagine most people's chakra is like sugar water. You get it flow how you want by making the right path for it. But Naruto here is more like syrup. He'll have to work even harder to get his chakra to move how he wants it to, but his is so potent that just a dab of it will do for most techniques. Kakashi stared. He hadn't known that. He wasn't entirely sure it was actually true, but from what he understood of chakra theory it might just be. It changed everything about how he planned on teaching Naruto. At least it would after he got someone who he actually trusted to confirm the theory. So using a bunch of chakra first will help me burn through it and make my chakra easier to use because it makes it more like sugar water? Naruto asked uncertainly. No. More like, it changes to warm syrup instead of cold syrup. Once you have your chakra moving and pumping, it's going to be easier to use. I'm simplifying things a lot here, but the net result is that you will find that the longer a fight goes on, the better you'll do. Orochimaru said as she slightly adjusted the bow in her hair. Whoa! I get better and better during a fight? I knew it! Naruto said with a fist pump. Hey, how come you didn't tell me this stuff, Kakashi-sensei? Kakashi was hesitant to just say he didn't know. He almost began with a defense that this was based off of chakra theory that only people that worked in laboratories knew when he was cut off. Naruto, cut him some slack. No one can know everything. And your sensei is pretty famous. He's one of Konoha's top jounin, and he is one of the 4th Hokage's 2 living students. She defended him to his students? Why would she? Wait, Kakashi's thoughts came to a halt. What? Kakashi was a student of the 4th? Naruto yelled. She just said, really, sensei? Sakura's question and Sasuke's brief sound of being impressed were entirely ignored. 2. What do you mean one of 2 ? Kakashi asked as his blood ran cold. His voice sounding distant even in his own ears. Era. Orochimaru interrupted. Look at the time. I have another appointment I need to get to. I'll have to pick this up with you later, Kakashi-sensei. Thanks for the lesson. I learned a lot. The devil of a woman said as she vanished. Kakashi leaned against the tree behind him and tried to catch his breath. She was lying. She had to be. He'd assumed she was until he received further proof, though a voice in his head whispered something he just couldn't shake, telling him that would only serve a purpose to Orochimaru if it was true. I knew going in that I would say something to hint at Obito. Before I had even approached Tazuna's house, I wanted to get him thinking in that direction. However, when the words left my mouth, when I said that there were 2 students of the Yondaime Hokage still alive, I couldn't say the rest. Kakashi's face, even mostly covered, flashed through so many emotions. Guilt, rage, sadness. All of them were so powerful on his face I immediately knew that I couldn't turn around and say that same person was also responsible for the death of his second father. Realistically, Kakashi wouldn't believe me if I'd said all that anyway. The idea in his head of who Obito was would not be able to match up with who he had become. I'd give more hints before they left way for home, but I certainly couldn't give the whole story. Not yet. In the meantime, I needed to start on one of my other major objectives, to seduce a man into going home with me. Within moments of travel I arrived at Gato's headquarters. A massive structure in the middle of the woods. The only reason I could think of for that is that the man didn't have his base of operations at his docks was to make it harder for angry mobs to get to him. The woods actually made it easier to approach undetected. Though that was a bit of bias from a Konoha shinobi. We were trained to navigate trees until it was second nature, and that training didn't go away. Even from soul absorption apparently, the approach to his hideout was noticeably easier as well. Either a different person set up the security for the docks, or Gato was confident no one would attack this location. Regardless, it was a cakewalk for me to open a window and slip into my desired room. It was only slightly more difficult to bat the Senbon needles out of the air and grab a slender wrist before it could jam a weapon into my throat. Era. You must be Haku-chan. I greeted as I shifted my grip to a handshake. I'm here to speak with your master. I won't let you touch Dash. The androgynous voice responded before being cut off. Haku. A deep baritone interrupted. Stop. I will hear what she has to say. Besides, if she wasn't here to talk, you'd be dead. A hiss sounded, making Haku glance down. A black mamba had its mouth centimeters from her leg. With my grip on her arm, she wouldn't have been able to get away if it tried bite her. It wouldn't, because I told it not to bite anyone unless I specifically ordered it to. But ninja need these. Look how badass I am. Moments when they meet each other. It was stupid, but apparently showing that you can kill them is pretty much the only way to make a ninja respect you on initial meeting. That or just showing yourself as a really hard person to kill, though that involved more steps. Zabuza! It's a pleasure to meet you. I released Haku and gave a curtsy. The demon of the mist looked up at me from his spot in the bed. I wasn't sure if his skin was always so pale, or if it was from being clinically dead for so long, but the man's complexion was almost the same as my own. His hair was ruffled and messy, and his sheets were perfectly straight, showing he hadn't really been moving at all since he got into the bed. Everything spoke of weakness but his eyes. His eyes looked at me without fear, but with a grim acceptance. If I was here to kill him, Zabuza would have no hard feelings about it. Who are you? You have snakes. You look like Orochimaru. And I know you aren't Mitarashi. So, who are you? Zabuza asked. Orochimaru is no more. I am Orochimaru, I replied. Zabuza stared at me for a moment, analyzing my response for deeper meaning. I kindly waited for him to finish his thought process. It didn't take long. And what do you want? I want you to come home with me and help me make little ninjas. Zabuza quirked an eyebrow and noticed Haku take a glance at their master, obviously asking what to do with that information. I don't do that. Though I know a brothel that could accommodate. Zabuza replied. Era. That's not what I meant at all. Though it was what I meant intended to imply. I valued a sense of humor in my employees and his dry sarcasm was appreciated. It made me more certain of my decision. No, what I meant was I have some ninjas that need training, and missions that need doing. Someone of your strength would be of a great help to me. Have you not heard how I got the name Demon of the Mist? Go away. I'll slaughter any students you have. Zabuza said dismissively. Yes. I've heard of it. And I've seen some of your mission reports as well. Near the end of your time in the Bloody Mist you had one of the highest records from missions where your comrades returned alive. I said as I cocked my head to one side. Then you tried to overthrow a tyrant and were kicked out for your efforts. You then picked up a stray and gave them life skills and molded them into being a splendid shinobi. Your resume is impressive. So you want to be my boss because I tried to kill my old boss and because I've shown I can bend people to my will? Zabuza asked. Yes. If I'm a tyrant, feel free to rebel again. I said with a nod. And my people could use some bending. Just don't break them, or I'll be mad. Zabuza stared at me, deciding how serious I was. I gave a serene smile in response. Finally, Zabuza started to give a deep chuckle. Sounds interesting. If you're good for the cash, I might be interested. But I'm on a job right now, so I can't. After the bridge builder is dead we could talk terms. Zabuza promised. I don't suppose I could make you drop the contract? I asked. It's not time sensitive, but I'd like you to start as soon as possible. Plus, fighting the copy ninja again will probably not be good for your long-term health. It might not. Zabuza acknowledged. But I accepted a contract. I don't give up part way. Professional pride shined in his eyes. Era. Lines like that just make me want you more, Zabuza-kun. I replied. Though would you feel the same if you found out Gato means to betray you at the end of your contract? Haku actually gasped. Zabuza shot them a reproachful look. If you have proof, I'll kill him myself. If not, I will continue my job as intended. If he tries to betray me, I'll take my money from his corpse. Zabuza responded simply. The man had a clear picture of who he was and what he was about. It was respectable. Well, you stand by your principles. If you didn't, I wouldn't want you. I stated firmly, though the assassin frowned. Ninja are tools. They don't need principles. Zabuza spoke with conviction. Then maybe this isn't such a good match after all. I responded as I began to walk towards the window. Tools don't build nations. People do. Zabuza's eyes widened. The talk of building a nation was no small thing. The balance of power in the world was an unstable one. Zabuza wasn't stupid. He knew that signing on for my proposal would be very likely to end in war, though if I had my way it would only be a little one. If I'm too much for you, Zabuza-kun, it won't break my heart for you to say you aren't interested. Hatake Kakashi is too much of a threat to bother worrying about your offer right now. If I'm alive in a week I'll give you my answer then. I gave a small laugh. Well, I can't begrudge you that. I turned to jump out the window but paused and turned to Haku. I'm sorry. Do you have a preferred gender, Haku-chan? Haku, wearing a mask, gave no apparent show of emotion. No? Haku's response sounded like a question. We'll talk more. I promised before hopping out the window. I had things to do, and only so many hours in the day to fuck with Gato's head after all. Zabuza watched the woman go, leaving both himself and Haku alone. Zabuza-sama. Who was that? Haku asked. The demon of the mist contemplated the question for a moment before responding. Someone dangerous. His apprentice removed the hunter-nin mask to expose worried eyes. Do you think she intends harm on you? No. Zabuza responded. But I don't think she's saying everything either. She was testing us just as much as she was offering us a job. Testing for what? Haku asked. I don't know, but she was good at it. She kept giving responses specifically to unbalance someone. She was able to control the conversation because she kept making sure we were still figuring out what she meant by the time she said something else, unless she'd boiled things down to a simple yes or no answer. Zabuza had to hand it to the woman. She knew the right way to distract. There was potential double meaning to everything she said. She purposefully took advantage of a ninja's habit of looking deeper into another person's words, and said things that could be interpreted in so many ways it could make one dizzy. She only made two things absolutely certain though. This Orochimaru wanted him alive and well for a job, but also wanted to challenge his view of the world. In negotiation it made no sense so directly oppose someone's worldview. She even made working with her contingent on a change of belief, though it might be a ploy to make them think she cared for them personally. A lie many villages and employers tell. He'd play along with her whims for now, if only to solve the dangerous puzzle presented to him. Haku. Don't fight that woman. Zabuza ordered. Yes, Zabuza-sama. I won't start anything with her. No. Zabuza corrected. Even if she comes for my life, don't try to stop her. What? Why? Pain flashed across his apprentice's face. There is no sense in you dying too. I am a tool for you, Zabuza-sama. It's my job to dash. We are tools, Haku. He agreed. However, there is a difference between a tool used and a tool wasted. She is strong. I know you felt her chakra too. She was making no attempt to hide it from us. She would kill me, and she would do it quickly. You dying too would be a waste. I can't accept that, Zabuza-sama. Haku argued. Not my problem. He grunted in response. Though a small part of his mind pointed out that tools didn't argue back at those that wield them. Just as tools also don't care about what they create. Besides, all of that was a distraction. He had other, more important, things to think about. Run me through the fight again. When did my behavior change again? Zabuza ordered. He had a copy ninja to prepare for. With my meeting with Zabuza behind me, I started on my next task, which was thankfully very close by. Gato's office. I needed access to all his paperwork. And his booze cabinet, because I had found it very difficult to find any alcohol other than sake here. At the current rate, I'd have to go find some agave and start making my own. Finding the office wasn't hard, even if I hadn't had Taiya's directions. I just had to look for a really big room with really gaudy furniture and with a massive window. Gato was many things. Subtle wasn't one of them. I quickly riffled through the man's files. They had plenty of information on employee records and shipping logs, but those weren't what I was interested in. My real target took a bit longer to find. Gato's transaction books. Those I found in a secret compartment in the desk. I flipped to the most recent pages and began scanning through the contents, looking for days where unusually large transactions were made. The amount of shinobi weapons and exploding tags he had would lead to single transactions that were much larger than his normal day-to-day stuff. I was quick to find the number that had one more zero than all the other entries had. No name was tied to the transactions, simply an account number. Cross-referencing the days of the deposits to the shipping manifests didn't show any consistent drop-off location. So the client was paying for things to be sent to many different locations. That didn't answer much. Any given missing nin or hidden village had multiple locations they wanted to stockpile weapons. Though the sheer number of weapons implied that this wasn't a lone ninja. Couldn't just leave a convenient piece of paper saying the name of your mysterious client out and about, could you? I grumbled. It was then I took a brief moment to raid the liquor cabinet as well. It was equally as disappointing. Can you people make any alcohol out of something other than rice? I did grab a bottle of ameshu, which was at least also made with plums. I returned to the desk and looked through the files once more. I looked through the transactions again. This time not looking at the amounts, but the names associated with the payments. There you are. In the books there was another account that was only a number. It also made a much smaller payment than the big ticket ones I was looking for at first. But they were linked. One small payment, then several weeks later, a larger one. A down payment. I acknowledged. Back to shipping manifests I found another pattern. Every time a down payment was made, there was a delivery from the land of lighting. It wasn't damning evidence, but it strongly implied Kumogakure were the ones backing Gato. I guess now I just have to see how much they actually care. I commented as I left the room. I did not clean up all of the files behind me. Gato was very confident that he was an extraordinary man. Objectively it was true. He had come from being a nobody, some random fisherman's son, to being one of the richest men on the continent. From being someone who didn't even have a family name, to being someone who had business meetings with daimyo. All thanks to the fact that he knew how the world worked. The strong lived, the weak got crushed. Same way the big countries with their hidden villages kept every small country from growing too large. The same way that a lord took the wealth of his subjects so that none could challenge him. The same way ninjas killed everyone in a little shopping district, including his mother, just to get at the one ninja in hiding. Even the same way his dad came home drunk and beat the shit of him to blow off steam from work. It was just the way the world worked. You need to strength to take what you want, and you need to use that strength to keep anyone from taking it from you. That was the failure that finally ended his father. His father failed to stop Gato from hiding enough money to buy a knife. And he certainly failed to stop Gato from stabbing him in the throat while he slept. It was a powerful lesson. One Gato kept to this day. You can't allow anyone to challenge your strength, or you'd find a knife in your throat. So that's what he did with his business. If he got a rival, he exploited their weaknesses, and if that didn't work, a blade in the night worked just as well. Everyone had a vice and way to get to them. However, as Gato stared at his office, piles of paperwork tossed about and his secret ledger of his accounts left out in the open, Gato knew that he wasn't strong enough. He hadn't been strong enough since he'd started accepting contracts from ninja. They were stronger than him. There was nothing he could do to stop them. He could probably have his men handle one or two of them, if they ganged up together. Most of the strength of ninja was preparation and illusion, but the raw resources and reach of a ninja dwarfed what he could accomplish, all just because they were born in a hidden village. Going to business with ninja was a mistake, he said as his blood ran cold. His most personal room, even more than his bedroom, had been violated, all because those damn ninja had made him an offer he couldn't refuse. That or because the stupid ninja that they had helped him hire couldn't kill one guy and his 3 kids. There were forces at play that went above him, that he had no control over. He hated it. He swore no one would have that kind of power over him again. Yama! Kodo! Get your asses in here! What the hell is this? How did you two dumbass let someone in here? There wasn't anything he could do about the ninja. Shinobi had to deal with shinobi. In the meantime, he could make sure that no one challenged him outside that. Next time one of you screw-ups misses something like this again, I'll have you whipped. He would leave his contacts out of this for now though. The last thing he needed was more ninja running around. Kabuto prided himself on his mental fortitude. He'd been through things that would collapse the minds of lesser men. His mind was a precision machine designed to deal with stress and maintain an unfailing logical outlook. His very logical mind proposed that just killing all the scientists was probably the most efficient way of dealing with his current stressors. I must have just misunderstood you. Your current project is one designed to research sound waves' effects on solid objects. Correct? Kabuto asked. Yes. The scientist agreed happily. And you had decided that the best way to go about that was to test one of the pillars supporting the ceiling of your lab. When you were testing the destructive power of sound waves, Kabuto clarified. The dust-covered scientist nodded his head. It was a resounding success. Success? You collapsed the ceiling of 3 different labs, including your own. Kabuto continued, hoping the man would connect the dots. You killed 2 lab assistants. I know. Imagine how great it will work against our enemies. It's saving your life. Huh? The scientist asked. Your funding will go towards the rebuilding of those labs until they have been remade. You will also have no assistance until such a time that Orochimaru-sama decides otherwise. Kabuto said, then gave a wave. You're dismissed. The scientist looked as if Kabuto had just slapped him in the face. Kabuto couldn't bring himself to care. You can't dash. Get out. Kabuto ordered. The scientist left whilst muttering under his breath. Something resembling joy fizzled in the lump of coal Kabuto called a heart. One lone idiot wouldn't ordinarily be enough to break Kabuto's charade of polite cheer. But this appointment wasn't the first of its kind. He'd had 5 others just like them. That same day, Kabuto immediately knew why it was so bad too. Orochimaru was gone. And with her gone, many scientists thought they could get away with things, or that Kabuto would give different answers than Orochimaru did. They were like toddlers who found out mom wasn't coming home for a few hours. Kabuto-sama. I'm here to put in a request. A mousy woman with purple hair said from his door. Kabuto put on his best smile. Yes, Ayasuji-san. What is the request for? Oh. You probably have been getting this a lot, but I'm here to apply for human testing. The woman practically whispered. I'm sorry, Ayasuji-san. We currently aren't doing any human testing unless you can provide ample research on dash. Kabuto began. On animal test subjects. Yes. I've done that. Here. The woman handed over a large stack of papers she had been holding. Kabuto held his surprise. He had actually assumed the large amounts of papers with her were just going to be more requests. He took her notes and began to flip through them. Your research is on sustained area of effect genjutsu? Kabuto asked. The research he was seeing so far was well organized and well thought out. Yes. The woman piped up, suddenly very energetic. It uses a seal array to cast a genjutsu over an area and cast it again a minute later, and repeats until it runs out of energy. We need human test subjects to find out how strong the illusion actually is though. No possibility of unintended loss of life as well. It all looked like everything was in order. This was something that legitimately needed human testing to pass it on to the next stage. As long as the illusion was not too mind-scaring, this was something that needed to go on to the next stage. I have to pore over your research some more, but if all I've seen so far is correct, it looks like you will be approved for human testing in the next week or so. The woman blushed and clapped her hands together. Oh good. It's been so long since I've heard a human's squeals of terror, she stated in the same shy tone. The woman turned and skipped out of the room. Kabuto paused and looked down at the report. I'll pass it on to Orochimaru-sama when she gets back, he stated before writing a note on the report that the head scientist needed heavy amounts of supervision in her human testing. Kabuto also returned to his own research. He wasn't sure why Orochimaru would want to have less control over the Edo Tensei summons, but working the theory was proving more and more that the act should be easy. Kimimura's sickness was proving far more difficult. It was like the marrow in the bones was fighting against him, producing blood that the body regarded as an enemy. It wasn't a simple case of something needing healing, or a virus needing to be purged. The body was fighting itself. There was the possibility of immune suppressants, but that ran the risk of. Kabuto-sama. I want to file a request, the dusty scientist from earlier said from his door. Kabuto slowly looked up from his research notes, and pushed his glasses up his nose. As he very calmly asked, Is it a request for human test subjects? Yeah. I hear you approve someone else's request, so with my recent success I figured get out. Word was getting out that he approved a case for human testing, meaning many would be trying to get their own projects approved for it. Kabuto deeply hoped that Orochimaru came home soon. He understood why she was so insistent on leaving. It's nice to get out and visit the ocean, I said with a stretch of my arms and a deep breath of salty air. It is nice, Kidamaru stated reluctantly. Of all of my bodyguards, Kidamaru was the one who seemed most resistant to my changes, and clearly had the most doubts on me actually being his boss, which was respectable in its own way. It meant he had loyalty and a good enough sense to know that I was not the same person I was before. All the more reason to keep him on Team Orochimaru. We're not going to talk about our feelings, are we? 'Cause if so, I'm fucking gone. Tayuya, on the other hand, had no problems at all accepting me as boss and would probably follow me for as long as I was stronger than her and could help her gain power. She was also the first to realize that I wasn't so strict on the showing of respect, though Orochimaru wasn't huge on the respect thing. He more just liked having an excuse to kill people and strike fear into his subordinates' hearts. No, Tayuya-chan. We don't have to talk about our feelings, I confirmed. But do keep an open mind about it. It's not healthy to bottle everything up. Tayuya looked at me like I placed my pants on my head and announced I was queen of the universe. Apparently your superiors telling you to talk about your problems was uncommon in the ninja world, which really went a long way to explaining all of its everything. Kidamaru-kun, what have you decided to do for keeping the ships in port? I asked. Despite my attempts to stay informal, Kidamaru snapped to attention. I did some digging. There are local legends about a monstrous crab named Takashi. Its shell is said to be colored gold. With my golden weapon and a few of my spider summons, I could probably make some sailors think the ocean spirits want them to stay in port. I gave a nod of agreement. Local legend or not, I'd stay in port if a giant gold sea spider was climbing up onto ships. Tayuya? Any more word on Gato? For one, the midget hates ninja. A lot. If he's got ninja backers, it's not by choice. Or they just offered him too much money. So do you think pissing him off or scaring him is the best option for getting him to run for help? I asked. The two options were pretty interconnected though. And things that scare men like Gato usually made them mad too. I'd go angry. He's a spiteful one, Tayuya confirmed. Anger it is. Keep tabs on him. Do as many small things showing interference as you can. But do it in a way that doesn't seem dangerous. If he gets too scared, he might just try to run instead. Sure. So break out the laxatives and have his men see some spooky shit. But keep anything away from him personally, Tayuya concluded. Sounds about correct, I agreed. Try not to have anything blow back on the civilians. We want their goodwill when this done. Why? Kidamaru asked. Why does their goodwill matter? They are civilians. They can't do anything anyways. I stopped myself from giving any sort of response based on morals. Civilians may not be able to harm us, but they can be a pain in the ass. It's far better to have them be useful. If they are happy, they won't complain when we do stuff like charge them taxes, have them build buildings, or farm our food. A happy people are a people not planning to betray us to our enemies. Kidamaru gave that some thought. It appears I was challenging the man's worldviews. You both did well. I got to Gato's documents. Whoever is supplying him with ninja tools is distributing from a port in Lightning. So it might be Cloud, I said. Makes sense. Cloud is the nation most ready to start a war right now. They could be using things to try and muscle into Mist, Tayuya commented. Yes. Though beware that it could be anyone with port access, I warned. I glanced through his employee files as well. I haven't managed to find anyone Gato has as a second in command. All the files in his office were dock workers and his thugs. Your plan kinda hinges on finding his second in command. Any plans for that, boss? Tayuya asked. I suppose I could try and get close to him. Get him to talk, I said with a grimace. Yeah, not likely there, boss lady, Tayuya said with a shake of her head. You are a little old for his tastes. I looked down at myself. I look like I'm in my late 20s, yeah. And Gato apparently doesn't touch any girl over 21. How young is his preference? My voice kind but layered in killing intent. Oh. No, not that bad, Tayuya stated. I mean, he's a fucking monster, but he seems to still want them to be adults. I suppressed a scowl. Adult in this world, for civilians, was still only 16. Still, someone getting close to him was probably a good idea. I looked considerately at Tayuya for a moment, then dismissed the thought. A hen should work fine. Find out his likes, Tayuya. Hair length, eye color, the works. This isn't something I want to do more than once, I ordered. Sure. I know the guys he sends to look for girls. I'll put up a disguise near them. Tayuya nodded her head. In the meantime, I have dinner plans, I said brightly. Hatake Kakashi had not had a very restful day. He lay there exhausted yet unable to sleep. His mind racing as he could only think on Orochimaru's words. One of his teammates was still alive. Unless Orochimaru was just saying things to get under his skin, one of his two teammates was alive. Damned if he could figure out which one though. He'd shoved his arm through Rin's chest and Obito was so crushed not even Tsunade would have been able to keep him alive. Both seemed impossible to have survived. Kakashi also wasn't a fool. If one of them were alive, they had either gone through hell in the last few years or didn't want to come home at all for some reason or another. He wasn't sure which option he liked less. Though based on their last interaction, it might truly be just a game to Orochimaru. It was so hard to see what was real and what was fake around the pale enigma. He was just thankful that the snake Sannin probably had no plans to stick around. A knock came from the door. Kakashi's body screamed at him as he stood up and traveled to the door. The sound of the door opening showed that Tsunami reached it first. He mentally made a note to speak with her about security. Then he felt the chakra. His eyes widened. Era. Tsunami-chan. As lovely as ever. I thought you might enjoy a nice dinner. I brought some Wagyu beef. Oh God, why? Kakashi gasped. Hello, Kakashi-kun. The voice of evil herself said. You really should be resting. Why are you here? His voice did not crack like a teenager. Dinner, the woman said, gesturing to a basket of food. Plus I'm going to be making a soup for you. Something to help with the chakra exhaustion. Since you'd only eat it if I made it in front of you, I figured I might as well bring dinner for all your students too. That couldn't be it. Unless her goals needed him to beat Zabuza. Though he wasn't sure what that would get the woman. Plus she kept coming with all of these luxury goods for food. No one brought those on missions. The only likely place for someone to get these would be from. Are you feeding us food you stole from Gato? He asked incredulously. Kakashi-san, that's not very dash. Tsunami began. Of course I did. Orochimaru replied. I don't exactly keep caviar and Wagyu beef on me. Tsunami looked at Orochimaru in shock. Why would you do that? Tsunami asked. I told you. Gato has a ninja backer. I need him to run for help without getting him so spooked that he just runs. That means inconveniencing Gato's life in hundreds of small petty ways every day. Petty ways? Kakashi asked. Yeah. Petty. Like stealing all his toilet paper. Removing the bookmarks from his books. Steal his food an hour before his meal time. Put ginger in his soap. Small things. Orochimaru admitted freely. Kakashi found a new mission in life. This woman could not be allowed to spend time alone with Naruto. Oh. Well, I guess it's okay if it's Gato. Tsunami finally decided. You are welcome to join us for a meal anytime. It's nice have another woman around. Oh, I can show you all kinds of benefits to having another woman around. Orochimaru replied with wagging eyebrows. Tsunami clearly knew the eyebrows were meant to signify something as an innuendo or joke, but was also clearly confused on what she thought was a joke. Kakashi could at least comfort himself with the fact that he could at least laugh while he trembled in fear. Here. Make sure I'm not poisoning you. Orochimaru said as she handed over a basket of roots and vegetables. Kakashi carefully picked through the basket, feeling for any needle marks, smelling for anything out of place, and looking for any sort of oils that may have been applied. It probably wasn't poisoned. Orochimaru could just kill him at her leisure. But if a ninja just ate something that a known enemy gave them without checking it for poison, then that ninja probably deserved to die. You're stealing from Gato, a young voice said. The child in the household looked up at one of the most dangerous people in the world and gave a grumpy. You're going to get people killed. Orochimaru turned to give the child sad eyes. Yes. I am. People are going to die. Orochimaru! Tsunami gasped in shock. It's true. Orochimaru said with a shake of her head. Gato is a monster that jumps to death as a solution for all his woes. I won't say more if it upsets you, Tsunami-chan, but I don't want to lie to your son either. Kakashi watched in curiosity. The woman was either a hell of an actress, or she actually felt something for these two. If she was just here to mess with people, it served no purpose to be honest and talk with a child like this. They were civilians. They didn't really matter. Tsunami hesitated. I know. But I don't want him to dash. I get it. Orochimaru said. I'll stop. But pretending something didn't happen can hurt your son just as quickly. Conflict stormed on Tsunami's face. She's right. Kakashi reluctantly said. It wasn't his business. But a tired man with a face so much like Kakashi's own who insisted on not speaking about his pain wouldn't let him say nothing. Just like physical wounds, emotional wounds can grow infected and fester. Tsunami glanced at her son, who looked like a deer caught in the headlights. Go hold your son for a bit, Tsunami-chan. I'll start on dinner, Orochimaru stated. As the pale woman moved to the kitchen and his host went to another room with her son, Kakashi found himself reconsidering things. If this was all an act, the act wasn't intended just to hurt them. Everything being done was to show a kind, gentle, and giving soul. It was the act of someone trying to show they could be trusted. Not just by them, this was long-term. For the people of Wave, and for Konoha. If it was just about getting one of his genin, she would have gotten to them. They were young enough to be made loyal with enough unsavory methods. She didn't do all that. She came to where he was to act kind. Near the Jounin. The one that represents Konoha, Orochimaru was trying to establish a peaceful relationship with Konoha. Giving intel. Providing mission support. Showing care. Or at least wanting them to believe that this probably wasn't just about a single goal in Wave. She doubtlessly was going to be here anyway, but was coming here specifically to speak with him. Which would go in mission reports. Which the Hokage would read. I need a drink. Kakashi concluded. Era, that's bad for chakra exhaustion. This was going to be a long road to recovery. I'm definitely getting higher up the tree than you to bail. You wish. I still have a solid meter on you. The smug bastard responded, trying to hide the fact that he was short of breath. Are not. I got to the 4th branch up. You were only on the 3rd. Naruto argued back. On a different tree. Not all trees grow branches in the same way. That's not how trees work, dumbass. That was probably true, but there's no way Naruto would admit to that. Sasuke had a big enough head that he didn't need Naruto giving him any ideas. Yeah, well, I spent most of my time using up my chakra beforehand. You were practicing longer. Naruto said with a sniff. Whatever you need to say to make yourself feel better. Sasuke said as he tried to pull a little ahead. So, you think we'll see Orochi lady for dinner tonight too? Naruto asked as he stepped forward to be just slightly ahead of Sasuke. Instead of trying to run ahead, Sasuke stopped in his tracks. Why would you think she's coming back? Sasuke asked in disbelief. Oh. Well, she seemed like she was having a lot of fun this morning, so she'd probably come back, right? Sasuke scoffed, and Naruto was proud of himself that he didn't just slug him right then. Naruto. You know that lady's dangerous, right? Sasuke asked in disbelief. Eh? How's she dangerous? After all, the woman brought them food and helped teach them. Plus she was pretty and wore a frilly dress. How could she be dangerous? Kakashi is afraid of her. Sasuke said. If he's afraid, we should be too. What? No way Kakashi-sensei is afraid of that lady. Naruto said dismissively. Just because she doesn't seem dangerous doesn't mean she isn't. It's the people that can make you trust them that are the most dangerous. Don't let your guard down around her. Naruto came up short. His teammates sounded super serious, which made him rethink things. Naruto could admit to maybe possibly not being the most observant person around, and there was possibly maybe some merit to listening to Sasuke's advice a little bit. A ninja should always be prepared anyways. Fine. Naruto concluded. But if we make it through this whole mission, and she doesn't try to do something, you'll treat me at Ichiraka after the mission. Seriously? If she tries something, we'll die. PSH. Right. Sure. Maybe she'll kill us with her hairbrush or her hair ribbon. Naruto scoffed. The lady didn't even carry any weapons on her. Then if I win, you clean up after team practice every day for a week when we get back. Sasuke scoffed. Maybe that will at least make you take this seriously. Ha. Bastard probably thought he was getting the better end of that deal, but he'd never seen how much Ichiraka Naruto could put away. Deal. Also, last one back to the house is a loser. Naruto yelled over his shoulder as he ran. Sasuke only a moment behind. Sasuke was gaining on him. Shockingly fast. Naruto let out a squawk of surprise. A manly squawk. Sasuke hadn't ever been that fast before. Then Naruto noticed the hole in the ground the bastard had left behind. It was just like the trees. Naruto pumped chakra into his feet, pushing his energy out of his foot when he went to take a step, rocketing him forward, and just barely letting him keep his lead. As they approached the house, Sasuke began to slow. Naruto grinned at his victory, as the house rapidly grew closer. Ha! Victory is wait. How do I stop? I was putting the last touches on Kakashi's soup when I felt Naruto and Sasuke drawing close. Then there was a loud bang on the side of the house, followed shortly after by a splash of water. A second later the door opened to reveal a very calm-looking Sasuke. Or at least he was calm until he saw me. Hey Sasuke-kun. Dinner is almost ready. I greeted. Tazuna-san should be here soon too. The soaked and grumpy kitten that was Naruto clambered up onto the bridge leading to the house. I totally meant to do that. Era Naruto. You're soaked, I said with a shake of my head. Go get washed off and dried, the both of you. You smell like sweaty boy. Oh hey. Orochi lady. See Sasuke. I told you she'd be here, Naruto said while elbowing his teammate. Meanwhile his sullen teammate glared at me. Sasuke, of all the genin, seemed to take my presence as a much more imminent threat. Though he lacked Kakashi's experience to be able to tell just how much of a threat I was other than just very dangerous. Hey! Did you bring food again? Is it ramen? It's been forever since I've had ramen. Naruto clearly did not take me as a serious threat. despite his teacher and teammate both telling him that he should probably be threatened by me. It left me wondering how exactly he managed to survive as a ninja. Superhuman regenerative ability probably had a lot to do with it. No ramen. Just ludicrously expensive beef and rice. I replied as I began spooning soup into a bowl. Here, Kakashi-kun. Your soup. Why are you here again? Sasuke asked. Well, I had so much fun this morning, I couldn't turn down showing up again for dinner, I said, which for some reason made Naruto give a cry of triumph. Kakashi-kun. Kindly send your minions to take a bath. That isn't a smell I think any of us want at the dinner table. The two genin looked over to Kakashi, who heaved a sigh before nodding. Go on. Make it fast. And keep an eye out. I took a moment to marvel at the fact that Kakashi was still slipping in warnings to pay attention. It's cute that he feels it necessary. The two reluctantly leave the room. Naruto heads straight to the bath, though I noticed Sasuke taking a quick patrol around the property, apparently looking for any other backup I might have brought with me. Which one were you saying is alive? Kakashi asked. It wasn't hard for me to guess at what the man was referring to. The man probably hadn't stopped thinking about it since I told him one of his teammates is alive. He was probably trying to catch me off guard with the sudden question too. A frequent tactic in interrogation. Obito. I answered truthfully. I couldn't tell if I had done anything to help him with the statement. Kakashi himself probably didn't know either. The man was probably shoving the information into a little box in the corner of his mind to actually feel emotional about later. He was a consummate professional. Do you have him? Were you the one who saved him? Kakashi asked. I took out some butter and threw it into a hot pan on top of the stove. I spoke over its sizzle. No. I only found out in the last 3 months. It was sort of true. I had only been in this world for 3 months, and this body I'm inhabiting didn't know until then. Who has him? Kakashi asked. Voice filled with steel. No one. I replied, throwing a steak into the pan. He's free. Well, he's free to come and go where he wishes. I don't imagine he feels very free. Kakashi was silent. I let the silence go on. I knew he'd need a while to mull over that response. The only sounds in the kitchen was the sizzle of the hot pan and crackle and popping of meat. How would I find him? I smiled, my back to the Konoha. It was the question I had been waiting for. Akatsuki. I replied. A group of S-rank missing nin from various hidden villages. Probably the most powerful collection of ninja on the continent. Powerful enough that half their numbers could single-handedly take on an entire hidden village. I could practically feel the ninja behind me tense. After all, I doubt the man had expected the day to include secrets that could shake the foundation of the entire elemental nations. How do you know this? If this is some great conspiracy, how do you know it? Era, that's simple. I replied as I flipped the meat. Steam rose in the air with a renewed sizzling. I was a member up until 3 months ago. I had once again made the man silent, clearly thinking on the implications. 3 months had also been when I'd said I found out about Obito. That by itself hinted at many possibilities. I'm sure the Jounin wanted nothing more than to throw me into an interrogation cell and have me give answers far more specific and comprehensive than the cryptic half-answers I was currently giving. Instead, I was merely giving him small pieces of a large puzzle and letting him figure out what the puzzle said. That's why you're here. That's why you're reaching out. You ticked off these people and you need help beating them now, cheeky little brat. Well done. I replied, then after a beat continued. Medium rare or rare? I turned around, one prepared steak laid to the side as I turned to look at Kakashi. The man's face was alternating between anger, fear, and accusation. I gave my best charming smile. I'll just make you a medium. You strike me as the kind that doesn't like things bloody. Kakashi flinched, and I went back to the stove, throwing on another steak. The kitchen again filling only with the sounds of fire and burning flesh. It took longer than previously for Kakashi to speak up. What do they want? What's Akatsuki's goal? Dangerous information, that. I responded. I'll answer. When the question comes from Naruto's godfather. Kakashi's chair clattered to the floor as the man stood up from his seat. Is that a threat? I rolled my eyes. Sit down, you cripple. It's not a threat. Maybe I just miss my dear former teammate? You dash. He started to say before I cut him off. It would appear we are out of time. The front door opened and Tazuna and Sakura walked into the room. Era, Tazuna-san. Working awfully late tonight, I commented. The bridge builder stepped into the room and took a deep breath, while Sakura looked uncertainly to her teacher's fallen chair and to me. The girl's hand straying towards her weapons pouch. Sakura, go wash off your hands and help Orochimaru with the food, Kakashi said with a serene smile. The girl looked on uncertainly before giving a nod. Yes, Kakashi-sensei. Tazuna, I also brought some ameshu. Feel free to help yourself to some, I said as I gestured to the elaborate bottle on the counter. The man quickly pouring himself a glass. Thanks. Today was busy. We had 10 more people join today. Well, rejoin. The food you gave me went a long way to getting people to want to work on the bridge again. Glad Tsunami-chan suggested it. I replied happily. Tazuna glanced around with a frown. Where is Tsunami? She's spending some time with Inari in another room. I replied. I'll call for her in a moment right when dinner is finished. Should only be a moment longer. How do you like your steak, Tazuna-san? Rare? The man laughed. I like it still mooing if I can get it, coming right up. I said happily as I grabbed another pan to fry some vegetables in. All the while Kakashi stared at me, 1,000 questions burning in his gaze. Don't pout, Kakashi. Can't give all the spoilers in the first act. I replied as I returned to cooking. Haruno Sakura wasn't sure on how to feel about this Orochimaru. The Shinobi Rule number 64 clearly stated that any traitors should be dealt with as swiftly as possible. But if this woman was as strong as Kakashi-sensei had said, then trying to do anything would get them killed. Plus, more than that, the woman seemed nice. She knew it was probably an act, but if the woman was doing good things, she didn't really think it was necessary to do anything right now. No reason to interrupt someone helping people after all. Plus, the woman seemed so much like what Sakura wanted to be. She smiled kindly, looked pretty, and was so strong she could scare even Kakashi-sensei. She'd never met someone like that before. Oh! Sakura-chan! You're back! Naruto's voice suddenly yelled, making Sakura's mood immediately plummet. She was beginning to realize that she might have been a little too critical of Naruto, but the boy wasn't making liking him easy. He was loud, he often smelled, and he just wouldn't take no for an answer. Plus, he constantly ignored her own feelings about how she actually did like Sasuke. So I got way up the tree. I go farther than Sasuke now, Naruto bragged, which immediately brought a scoff from the dark-eyed member of their team. Dream on, dumbass. I'm still meters ahead, Sasuke said while looking away from her. The boy's pale profile dignified even in the house's poor light. Era, some competition is good, but don't go too far, Orochimaru said, carrying a plates of food over to the table. Remember, your teammate's strength is your strength. Nothing beats the power of friendship. The power of friendship? Sakura asked. She hadn't ever heard a ninja seriously suggest something like that before. Yes. Taking one person by surprise with the help of 3 other people goes a long way, Orochimaru replied. Sakura blinked for a moment. The advice actually was basically the same as what Kakashi gave for teamwork. She just seemed to say it differently. Ha! You guys should be glad to have a super cool ninja like me, Naruto said while making sloppy punches in the air. Well, I am glad be on a team with Sasuke-kun in it. Alright. All 3 of you. You can cut that shit out right there, Orochimaru said with a shake of her head. Huh? Sakura asked in surprise. Naruto-kun. You are an asset to the team. But you can't do everything by yourself. It would have been better than to brag about how good your teammates are. Strong people don't need to tell others they're strong. Their reputation precedes them. Strong people brag about their allies, Orochimaru said before rounding on Sakura. And Sakura-chan, your team is more than Sasuke-kun. Naruto-kun is also a major asset to your team. Putting everything on Sasuke's shoulders isn't fair. Sakura found herself blushing. She knew what the older woman said was true. She depended too much on Sasuke. The last battle at the lake with Zabuza really showed that she didn't have much to contribute. She couldn't just assume she'd be fine just because Sasuke was on her team. Kakashi had been asking after missions what it was she wanted to do in her ninja career. He'd asked her what sort of roles she saw herself filling in the team. She still had no idea how to answer that. Your team has great potential. You probably remind more than one person of my old team from when I was a genin. But you each need to grow into your own. Of the 3 of you, only Sasuke seems to have a good picture of what sort of shinobi he wants to be, Orochimaru said as she poured herself a cup of the sake she told Tazuna about earlier. Ask for your sensei's help on things. That's what he's there for. To guide you. If you ask him what you should work on, he'll tell you. If you don't know how to work on those things, then ask him how to improve. You're ninja now. No one is going to hold your hand and walk you to ultimate power with step-by-step instructions. Sakura all at once realized she never once asked Kakashi-sensei what he thought she should do. She never once asked for what she should improve on. Never before asked for a training exercise, and even after she completed the tree walking exercise so easily she didn't ask for another one. None of her teammates asked questions like that. Sasuke usually went off to do his own training. Naruto would ask for a cool ninjutsu but would stop whenever Kakashi suggested another exercise. Now that it was pointed out to her, Sakura suddenly felt pity for their instructor. Yeah, but Kakashi-sensei never teaches me any cool ninjutsu. I ask all the time, Naruto whined. And Kakashi-kun, how do you respond? Sakura looked to their sensei and found the man slouched in a bizarre mix of exhaustion and vindication. Generally, I suggest the leaf-sticking exercise or for him to practice his taijutsu forms. Orochimaru put one hand to her chin before giving a nod. Yeah. Good advice. I'd suggest the same thing too. Huh! But I could just learn some cool ninjutsu, and then I'd be way stronger, Naruto said. What's a leaf exercise? Tazuna asked, a blush on his face and liquor on his breath. A chakra control exercise, Sakura responded. You get the leaf to stick to your head with just your chakra. Sounds dumb. Tazuna slurred before taking another swig. Right, Naruto asked. Agreeing with the drunk civilian doesn't help you, moron. Sasuke spoke up, leaving the fact that two people with much more experience and power than you are advising you to do this, and you are still complaining about it. Orochimaru said with a disapproving look. You can at least understand that if you got even just a bit better at taijutsu, it raises your threat exponentially when combined with Kage Bunshin, the most useful of clone ninjutsu. Oh. Well. Yeah. But I trained my taijutsu. I beat up dummies all the time, Sakura blinked. That was his definition of taijutsu training? Naruto. Is that what you've been doing when you said you were practicing your taijutsu forms? Kakashi asked in disbelief. Well, yeah, Sakura herself could hardly believe it. While practicing on a dummy is an important part of taijutsu training, it's considered the last step after spending time running through form until you have perfected it. Well, that explains a lot. Orochimaru sighed. Still, the very nature of you making so many clones allows for more benefit. Of all clones to be able to mass produce, shadow clones are the most useful. They are? Sakura asked. Yes. Orochimaru nodded. Water clones are low cost but only have 1/10 of the original strength. Mud clones are sturdier than other clones but can't preform ninjutsu. Blood clones require you to have blood on hand. Pretty much all of the rest don't think for themselves and make you micromanage them. Sakura mentally took note of that factoid. You should ask your sensei about what other things Kage Bunshin can do too, Orochimaru said. Remember, your sensei is around here to help you grow stronger. Listen to others' wisdom. Oh. Is dinner ready? A Tsunami's voice came from the doorway. I was just about to call you, Tsunami-chan. Orochimaru's tone suddenly dripped with honey. Please come and put some of my meat in your mouth. Sakura suddenly started to rethink her respect for the mysterious ninja.